rolled up a half-elf bard named Onyx. Hello friends, and welcome back to ReddX, your source for the freshest daily Reddit content anywhere on the internet. Promise, swearsies, it's just a fact. It might even be science. Just go ahead and look it up. So today we are jumping into r/RPGHorrorStories. My brother and his pony problem. Uh-oh. Leave the ponies alone. Hello, first time posting. This story happened approximately 12 years ago when I was 10 or 11 years old, and a completely starry-eyed newbie at D&D. Nowadays, I'm a pretty seasoned player who's also wrote some of my own campaigns, but we all start somewhere. Facts. I was always fascinated with D&D since I was very young because my dad and brother played it, and I looked up to both of them a lot. I also loved the concept, and I liked fantasy, so I was in fact very overjoyed when they finally let me in on the fun. Now that I'm older, I can recognize that my dad and brother aren't actually great DMs, my brother especially. This story in particular always comes to mind, and it took me a combo of years and meeting new people to finally realize that my brother was being a jerk for no reason, and some people are in fact just bad dungeon masters. For context, my brother's 8 years older than me, so he was 20-ish here, and he disapproves of everyone and everything. Beardo. He's one of those DMs who hates it when players have too much fun, and for him, the rules come first before anything else. Ugh. He's also super high and mighty about the different editions and swears by 3.5, and openly says that people who play 5th edition are mentally deficient. Well, he sounds just lovely already. This story is just one example of his approach to D&D. So, I'm a very excited kid who knows next to nothing about the rules, and boy, was I ready to go on an adventure. I rolled up a half-elf bard named Onyx. I always loved Bard because of Tom Marilyn from The Wheel of Time, and my cousin and my uncle are my fellow party members, but their characters aren't really relevant here. This is 2nd edition, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, by the way. So, after a battle and some looting, the party stopped at a small village, and we had some downtime before we set off on our quest, investigating a rumor in a distant city. I had a lot of gold, and I wanted to spend it, so I thought that it would be a good idea to buy a mount for the journey. Because my character was so small, I had her purchase be a pony. My brother was not happy about this, and asked me several times if I was sure, stressing that this would be an absolute waste of money. I insisted that I was sure, because I didn't think it was a big deal, and he didn't know that the main reason I went straight for the pony was because my brother had a companion who rode a pony in a separate game that my dad was running, and I just wanted to emulate that. So anyways, I buy my pony, and in an attempt to sound more grown-up and serious, I named him Snake Eyes. My brother didn't hesitate to tell me how stupid he thought this was. I was hurt, but we had an adventure to go on. So Onyx and Snake Eyes were only a bit down the road when I realized that my brother was not going to let me off easy here. It was quickly established in the narrative that Snake Eyes was the most stubborn, uncooperative, ill-tempered pony you could ever meet. He constantly tried to bite at Onyx, wouldn't listen to a single command, and kept trying to run off at every free moment. It was quickly becoming unfun for me, and I started to resent my purchase, but I pressed on, trying to hold on to any optimism that I had left. We came across an illusion of fire, and we could not convince Snake Eyes to walk through it. I understand the logic here, but my brother practically held up the game for 20 minutes, trying to force me to abandon my pony by making it refuse to continue. After a lot of deliberation, my uncle suggested that we blindfold Snake Eyes and lead him through the fire, which my brother begrudgingly allowed. Finally, at setting up camp, I was feeling pretty bad, 11-year-old child guilt, and I was trying to build some kind of bond with Snake Eyes by feeding him apples and petting him, but my brother made it clear that Snake Eyes still absolutely hated me. Anyways, in the middle of the night, orcs attacked our campsite, and we had to defend it. Despite being tied to a tree, Snake Eyes managed to free himself, and in the confusion, took off running into the forest, never to be seen again. Well, at least until we found his corpse later, gutted and strung up in a tree by the orcs. I was very upset at the loss of my pony and my money, and as a kid I found this a very discouraging introduction to D&D, because I just wanted to have a pony like the other character, and my brother had to ruin it. After the session I confronted my brother and asked why he had to be such an ass, paraphrasing, about my pony, and why he had to make it uncooperative and desperate to run away, and he just shrugged and said,
"It's your fault. You should have bought a war pony. They listen better."
"Rip, snake eyes. You are still missed." What a douchebag DM, dude. See, this is why we can't have nice things, okay? It doesn't make any sense for a 20-year-old man to kill an 11-year-old's pony. Like, what is your actual problem, dude? This guy makes for a terrible DM. I don't necessarily want to extrapolate that and say that he makes for a terrible human, but I'm definitely thinking that really hard. I do hope that your brother's chilled out a little bit now that about 10 years have gone by. And if he hasn't chilled out, then I guess he's just irredeemable and probably worth cutting off, or at least not playing D&D with him anymore. Like, who really cares what edition it is? You know what I mean? Who really cares if people are having fun? Let people enjoy things. That's why people spend hours and hours playing tabletop games, because they like it. And if they stop liking it, then you don't have any players to DM or play with, depending on what you're doing. Even if OP had gotten a war pony, I think that her brother still would have killed it with just some different bullshit reason. Anyways, let's jump into the next story. When wild magic gets a little too wild. Bow, chicka, bow, wow. Not safe for work. Actually, I'm not sure if this is technically not safe for work or not, but please feel free to laugh at my torment. To preface this, I've been playing D&D for a little over 5 years now, and this is the most embarrassing thing that I've ever experienced in-game, and quite possibly in my life. Sounds juicy. I'm currently a player in an online Descent into Avernus game. My cousin is the DM, and I play alongside my dad, a D&D veteran from the early days, and a few other people who are experienced players themselves. During combat, my dad, Crowan the Wild Mage, triggered a surge, and the DM rolled secretly to determine the effect that happened, and also to see who would be the target. Pretty standard stuff so far. Oh, wild magic. I ended up being the target and getting the following whisper from my DM. "I am so sorry, but the dice have spoken, and as a result of wild magic and fate, you have fallen in deep, romantic love with Crowan for the next 24 hours. I am mortified. If you've never had to flirt with or woo your own dad, let me go ahead and say that I don't recommend it. I wonder why. My girlfriend heard what happened from the other room and lost her shit for the remaining hours of the session. The worst part of it all is that I play a changeling, and I keep just seeing the scenes from The Boys with Homelander and Doppelganger playing in my head. Dispel magic now. No, honestly, it is pretty hilarious, and the fates have spoken. Don't dispel it, you know? Let it play out, and I think it could be a pretty funny thing that would go down through the annals of history in your group. Maybe annals isn't the best word to use there. It's a little close to anal. But OP, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a way to make sure that your character, whatever character you're playing, is remembered throughout time. You don't have to go all like Pepe Le Pew, you know? And be like, mon chéri. You gotta be like, okay, maybe I like him so much that I just become a babbling idiot whenever I try to talk to him. Maybe I'm the chivalrous sort that wants to write a poem and, you know, gets offended when anybody else talks to him or pays him a compliment. Inject some white knighty neckbeardiness into it. It could be a lot of fun, man. I hope that he's your stepdad. That makes it slightly less awkward. And it also gives me a great idea for the porno script that I've been writing in my spare time. Oh, that's just a joke. Porns don't have scripts anymore. That story was definitely a shorty, but a goodie. Let's hope that the next story can stack up to it. Tabaxi Shenanigans. Again, not safe for work. So, this happened a while back. I was in the first weeks of my freshman year and wanted to start a D&D table. One of my old pals from high school with whom I used to play was in the same major, So we decided to keep the homebrew world that he had going. He was the first to join, and for the rest I did some announcing in the uni's Facebook group. In the end, there were 7 players. Besides my high school friend, I only knew one other player that was in my class, but I digress. So, one of the players, a dude, this is relevant, says that
He never played.
and he wanted to make a
D&D Khajiit.
uh-oh. A red flag. So, I told him to make a Tabaxi. First few sessions go by. As with most noob groups, they were kind of stale RP-wise as people get comfortable, but with my veteran friend's help, we get the ball rolling. So as people got comfortable RPing, the Tabaxi started to go from a little bit flirty to just outright simping on other people in the party, like giving his gold and magical items to the girl players, even though he's a freaking thief. Duh. And he started to ask the DM in quite a bit of detail
How a Tabaxi, being a cat, would have intercourse.
I'll spare you all the rest, but one of the questions was if Tabaxis had barbed pubes like their whiskers. How about I don't know? How about nobody's ever asked that question? How about please never bring that up again? Whenever someone got grossed out by it, he'd start chuckling, as if he was pranking us and didn't really want us to know. But that was enough in the long run to make us lose 3 players. In my defense, it was simultaneous. I would have confronted him on the first, and well, that's why I did, and I told him to cut it out or I'd ask him to leave the group. When I said that, he threw a giant tantrum saying,
I was trying to exclude him and take his character away from him.
and that
His character was very special to him, and he would roleplay him as he saw fit.
So I made well on my promise and kicked him. The 3 players that left came back afterwards, and the campaign wrapped up at level 20. Cut a few years, and he comes out as a furry. Well, nobody can say they absolutely did not see that coming. You can definitely play a Khajiit without being a weirdo, but it's very difficult to do. There's just something about the anthropomorphic animal races that seems to attract weirdos of every stripe. I did roleplay a Khajiit for a long time on my gaming channel, and it never turned, like, super weird. It was kind of slow, and admittedly not the most exciting thing in the world, but it did well enough to get a mention on Watch Mojo at one point, so that was pretty cool.
Brandar the Khajiit Bard. Channel, Dayton Does Gaming.
So I guess I shouldn't judge characters immediately just because,
He wanted to play a Khajiit.
but it definitely is a red flag. It would cause me to pin that guy as like a trouble player, you know, and just watch him for other red flags. Like the being a bit flirty, that's okay. The simping, probably red flag number 1. That's outside your character class. Why is a thief gonna give anybody anything? It's not gonna happen. And then by the time we get around to asking about how Tabaxi's mate, you're done, dude. You gotta go. I don't know how long this went on for, but if it was more than 1 session, then God bless those other players for even bothering to come back, because I probably wouldn't have. I would have been like, I don't know. My character fell asleep and never woke up. I'm gonna find another group. Goodbye. But the DM did do the right thing and kick him out eventually, so I guess there's something. Anyways, we got one more story, and then I'm gonna get out of here. So let's go ahead and jump on into it. If you're gonna be an edgelord min-maxer, don't expect the NPCs to coddle you. So this is a bit of a long story. It started when we were players together. I built a character with a focus on RP. I built an Air Genasi with a lawful neutral outlook on life. We were playing Dragon Heist, and I thought this would be perfect for a campaign focused on roleplay and fitting into society. There's no need to go into the different characters of this campaign, as it quickly fell apart. I will discuss that whole hot mess in another post. For now, let's just focus on Edgy McEdgington, our resident edgelord. Our first session, we were sent on a quest to find a missing person. One thing led to another, and we found ourselves outside of a warehouse. The windows were all covered. There was no way to see inside. My character knocked on the door. This was, of course, an affront to the sensibility of this edgy character who lived his life on rooftops in tents in the dead of winter. After learning this, my character offered to let him stay at her place, which was a nice warm boarding house on the south side of Waterdeep.
No need.
That night there was a snowstorm. Edgy refused to budge from his rooftop tent. The next session, Edgy told me bluntly that
I should create a new character to play. My decision to knock on the door was bad. My spell selection was subpar, since I'd counted on the sleep spell being effective without realizing that the DM had decided to give the baddies max HP. My character could be optimized better, and I should choose another character that was more min-max appropriate.
Jesus Christ, me and this guy would not get along at all. I purposely pick races that are not meant for certain classes. It's more exciting that way. I felt a bit indifferent the next session. I let the rest of the party take the lead and took a back seat to Edgy while he led the party on the next leg of the adventure. Honestly, I don't remember much of that session because I was just so checked out. Outside of game, Edgy would send me and the DM questions, hypothetical situations of how we would handle certain predicaments. The Dungeon Master and I previously ran alternating campaigns, so he would often loop me in on the Dungeons & Dragons related questions. These questions included things like,
what would happen if I glued a fireball bead from a necklace of fireballs to an arrow?
And of course, he never liked our answers. I think I'd probably have you roll to attack with the arrow, and then if you missed, I'd have you roll a percentile to see where the arrow landed.
I don't agree with that.
Okay. A few sessions later, the group had decided that they weren't enjoying the campaign. Again, a story for another time. This is the story of Edgy. The group had decided that they wanted me to take over. I had been a dungeon master before for 2 of the players, and aside from Edgy, the dynamic was really great. I decided to let them indulge themselves and let them play evil characters. I would run a sandbox that was a mix of all the different modules that I'd ran before. They started in jail. I asked them each to describe why they were in jail. Edgy was a ranger, whose favorite enemy was humanoids. He was a bounty hunter, and he was caught being suspicious outside of a house. The chaos then began. The town was under assault by giants, straight out of Storm King's thunder. One of the massive boulders that they had thrown crashed into the jail that they all were in, and they made their run for it. Edgy was playing a version of some UA that focused on planar travel. As I wasn't interested in doing Planescape at that time, I reworked it to be Feywilds based. This was pre-Tasha. They jumped into the Feywilds to cut some travel time off the trip back to Waterdeep. Edgy's backstory was
that he'd been taken in by some druids when he was in his teens. Part of the initiation ritual involved going to the Feywilds, and his character ended up trapped there for several months.
Can you say Jumanji? I asked outside of the game, was there any point during this time that your character would ask for help from a group of travelers? Edgy,
my character would never do that. Why do you keep trying to make my character vulnerable?
Well, there goes the idea of your future self running into your past self in one of those Feywilds crazy time loops. Even without the time shenanigans, they had a crazy fun time in the Feywilds. They made it back to Waterdeep and were presented with a job by Edgy's Zent boss. There were 2 factions of Zents in the town, taken from Dragon Heist, one that was operating under Manchun and the other with more economic interests. His contact set him to the sect that was controlled by Manchun, trying to build bridges. They were asked to employ the services of a noble whose family was cartographers. This was to add a new player to the table, but a perfect reason to add a new character. Secretly, I told this new player that his character was under the employ of the Manchun faction, and he was to report back on how Edgy did on following instructions. The group was hired to go to a swamp in the north and locate a castle where some adventurers had cleared out a cult. This I pulled from Horde of the Dragon Queen. Their mission was to get into the castle, infiltrate subtly, and report back. Any treasure they found would be on top of the reward they were getting, with a portion going to the Zents, of course. Edgy asked if I would text him the mission. I said no. I told him he could ask any questions he wanted, and he could take notes, but he declined, so they left towards the swamp. As a ranger with a favorite enemy of humanoids, Edgy was constantly asking to sense if there were any within 3 miles. A lot of the time, the answer to that was yes. There are a lot of creatures that fall under that category. It became a running joke with the other characters that he would constantly ping, 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 because yes, There is a humanoid nearby. So they returned from their quest. No one could remember the mission except for myself and the player who was secretly a spy. I asked the spy to tell me how he felt they did at the mission, and Spy did not hold back. He informed his Zent boss that everything went wrong. Edgy was pissed. He returned to his contact, again a different section of Zent, and cried to her about
how he was lied to and how they sent a spy to watch over him.
She was not having it, so she let him have it with both barrels. She said that if he didn't understand the mission, then he should have asked for clarification. Edgy said,
"But I thought you were my friend."
And she said, "I'm not your friend. I'm your boss." A few sessions later, the group voted to kick him out of the game. His incessant messaging me for out-of-game hypothetical taking its toll. The other characters were annoyed with him, and the icing on the cake was his breakdown with his boss. TLDR. Should have min-maxed your quest log, bro. What kind of character, especially like a cool assassin, can't remember like 2 lines of dialogue? Here are your instructions. Infiltrate the castle. Do not get caught. Detect any treasure inside. Duh. A story of how an edgelord created a schism in a D&D adventure in a convention. See, the problem is you're doing it at a convention. Presumably you don't really know these people. I will never play D&D with people that I don't know intimately. That's just a personal rule of mine. I find that D&D works a whole lot better if you trust these people 100%. Randos? Forget it. Miss me with that. But anyways, my wife and I have been running D&D Adventurers League games in conventions for many years when we lived in Utah, USA. As a result, we always got invited to Comic-Con, FanX, Anime Bonsai, SaltCon, Gaming Con, etc. to run adventures and grow the popularity. The popularity of yourself or the adventure? I think D&D is already pretty popular. If you want a game that you need to grow the popularity of, let me show you Blood and Thunder. Yes, created by our very own Ramtide, a pirate-based nautical tabletop RPG. We've also got Weirdos and Waifus, which ties in a lot closer to this channel, where you can LARP as a neckbeard to your heart's content. I'm just saying, that's the kind of stuff that really needs to grow in popularity, if you please. You can get those games for free or, pay what you want over at ramtide.itch.io. I will try to remember to slap that into the description for you. Thank you so much in advance. Now, this happened in Anime Bonsai of 2016. It was the very first time that we were there, and we all made sure to make our games as fun as possible to ensure that we got invited back. We did, and we've been there ever since. However, there is always that one neckbeard / edgelord / nice guy that ruins the fun for everyone. Yeah, we call him that guy. That guy with the main character syndrome who doesn't understand how to work with other people. You want to have a solo adventure? It's called writing a book. Get away from my table. I had the misfortune of having this person at my table. He wasn't a whale of a man. He was rather skinny, maybe even lanky. He wore a red button-up shirt, which was baggy on him, a pair of black pinstripe dress pants, also too baggy on him, a white tie, a black trench coat, and a fedora. Yeah, you can take one look at this guy and know what he's about, right? Come on, he's trying to dress it up for the ladies. Maybe I'm gonna find the girl of my dreams at Comic-Con. Yeah, good luck, chucklehead. All he needed was the katana, the body pillow, and some Mountain Dew to finish the ensemble. He walked around with a sense of superiority, and when he talked, he also made sure to make his speech seem polished and proper, with a smooth and suave voice. Yeah, that's why I picked that voice for him, because it's so smooth and suave. He didn't have a neck beard, but instead he had like some scraggly pubes awkwardly poking out of his face. He had acne galore, greasy hair. However, no stench emanated from him, and I was extremely glad for that. Yeah, like I said, he's dressing it up today, okay? He's on the prowl. This is him on his best behavior. And apparently it still isn't acceptable. And of course, all of this still didn't shield him from the putrefaction of his own mind and his heart and the vitriol within his mouth. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we just call that coom-brained, but I like the way you put it. Rather poetic, I think. So he arrived at my table. I was about to run a 2-hour adventure, and it was composed of him and a very lovely husband and wife couple. You couldn't even tell that they were gamers by looking at them. Can you tell by looking? I mean, I guess with some people you could, but I don't think people would peg me and my wife as gamers most of the time. Well, possibly me, but not my wife. They seemed very out of place. They look like the stereotypical upper middle class white couple. Think of the blonde Chad and Stacy. But they were very well versed in nerd culture. My wife and I are still very good friends with them. Don't judge a book by its cover, that's all I'm saying. Unless they're a neckbeard, then definitely judge that guy by his cover. So the game began, and the Edgelord constantly tried to derail the adventure with trying to hurt every NPC that had female genitalia. I told him to stop because he was making the others uncomfortable. He stopped, and then just spoke softly while glaring at me. He tried to intimidate me, but I wasn't shaken by it. Yeah, you want to do this? I don't think you know what you're getting into. If you want to step outside, just let me know. I'm only equipped with these hands, but they each do a 1d10. In the middle of the adventure, while in a desert caravan, a sandstorm hit and knocked their cargo aside. Everyone managed to pick up and gather the contents of the wagons, except for Neckbeard. He just sat and did nothing. You realize this doesn't require any actual work, right? It's all theater of the mind. Why would you not help your party out? The NPCs asked and pleaded for his help, and he did nothing. The couple asked several times, and again, he did nothing. He just sat, looked at everyone working, and just insulted them for being saps and fools, while wearing that smug smile of his. Yeah, this ties right into what I said, right? D&D with strangers, you never know what you're gonna get. You might have a bad time. Needless to say, no one liked him. In his insults, he said something that set husband off so bad that he had to leave the table. His wife decided to stay behind to finish stuff. No, back your husband up. This adventure's over, okay? And of course, only a short while later, the adventure ended, and I divided the XP, treasure, and everyone went their own separate ways. I then went to check on husband and asked if he was okay. He said he was getting there. He also said that he was close to punching the Edgelord's face in. Go ahead, do it. Talk is cheap. The wife was sad that things had come to this point and said she didn't want to end the game because their characters needed the XP to get to the next tier. She later mentioned that after her husband left, Edgelord gave her creepy looks. She wasn't the only woman to make such a claim. Honestly, as the DM, OP, you should remove him at a certain point. He's not there for the right reasons. It's time to make the table more comfortable for everybody else who shows up, right? My wife was also ready to punch this dude when he was acting like a total creep at a table full of women and teenage girls. Again, get him out. Put the boots to him, medium style. After I finished talking to the couple and went back to the table to pick up my stuff, one of my coordinators came to me and told me that Edgelord had made a formal complaint against me. Yeah, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You're like, maybe he's gonna do better if I just let him sit at the table longer. Get him out! It's over! For having a hostile table and for treating him horribly. He also managed to throw in some slurs, I'm Latino, while he was at it. The coordinators were on my side, however, and we figuratively wiped our asses with that complaint. After that adventure, he was banned from the D&D section, effective immediately, because he had also pulled similar stunts at other tables. So in the end, I have my fun with his dwarven trickster cleric. I often make him an antagonist in the adventures that I run, and I get pleasure every time that he is killed. I mean, that's one way to take care of it, isn't it? Epilogue. I pressed my coordinator for the exact language that Edgelord used. He called me a specific slur for Latino people and a parasite in this country, and said something about me needing to speak good English. Yeah, me speak English good. Why use many word when few word do trick? Now, why did I not immediately end the adventure? Ah, see? We are in the same boat, aren't we, OP? I tried to end it, but the wife wanted to keep going. It was the final adventure for the day, and they had an adventure the next morning, and they needed to be level 5 to participate in that adventure. Whatever, man. Fudge the sheet. Yeah, I'm level 5. Who cares? I guess I'm not a D&D purist like most people. I don't care how much I want level 5. I'm not gonna sit here and tolerate this for the next few hours. I'm 32 years old. I've been in the US for 21 years, and my English is flawless. I pride myself on that. And my prideful nature makes it so I speak English as perfectly as possible. Yes, I am petty. Not like Larry David petty, but still. So does this neckbeard Edgelord count as sort of like a Karen as well? Because he went to report you to your supervisors or whatever? It seems so ridiculous that he would think that that would have any effect. I can understand if it's a whole table complaining about somebody who's running a game, but one person, they're like, yeah, had a bad time. It's like, well, everybody that sits at your table seems to have a bad time because of you. So maybe the person running the game's not the problem. Maybe you are the problem. I understand you paid to get into this convention and whatnot, but honestly, we hope not to see you again. Security, this is this guy's face. If we see him in here, we gotta get him out for the comfort and safety of all of our guests. He's too coon-brained to operate around other human beings. Maybe we need to set him up with a glory hole mimic. That's the only way to really truly solve this for good, isn't it? A rather good story, I do think. I would have liked to see a bigger punishment than that, but honestly, excluding him from the thing that he so enjoys is probably punishment enough, right? We don't have to put him up against the wall, right? We did that part for fun. Anyways, that was a rather short one, so we're gonna get into some other stories, and I hope you join me over there. DMPC has Holy Avenger at level 2. We kill him and take it for ourselves. Then the DM quits. Oh, looks like your self-insert isn't working out how you thought it was gonna work out, huh? Well, that's a shame. Oh, that's too bad. At level 2, I love it. Horror from all sides that culminates in everybody losing. In our first session, we almost TPK from goblins. At the end of that session, we level up and arrive at the town where a paladin NPC joins us. The DM says, I'll help you out since it looks like you're having a rough time. Oh, thank you so much. Our next mission is to infiltrate a zombie bandit hideout under an abandoned mansion. At first, it looks like another near TPK with the bandits hitting pretty hard, but then the DMPC pulls out his holy sword and smites everything in sight. Out of character, I know that this is the Holy Avenger. I have to talk about how OP this is for a level 2, and the DM says, well, do you not want the help? As expected, the DMPC Paladin shines every fight, and we just kind of feel like the backup dancers. Really, if you're trying to put on a show like this, run your adventure like this, then just write a book, man. You can have your hero do all the amazing things, and you don't need a captive audience to do it. Put it on Amazon, 99 cents, hell, make it free. Nobody's gonna read it, but maybe if you write it, you'll cut out these sorts of shenanigans. This keeps going on until level 3, and we are all annoyed by this point. During the night, we plot to steal the sword. We stab him in his sleep, and the DM says, PvP's not allowed. You can't murder hobo your ally and steal his sword. I don't want to continue DMing for you guys anymore. Okay, good. Good riddance to bad rubbish as far as I'm concerned. Now you got time to slot in another game with an actually decent DM. Do you think this DM actually had like some amazing tricks up his sleeve? Was he gonna throw a story at you that you could have never possibly conceived of? No, everything is cookie cutter. He's coloring completely inside the lines and basically just trying to play the hero and make everybody else watch. I think probably you needed like a better reason to kill him in character. Maybe you could have been a bit more sneaky about it than just like ganking him in his sleep. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, yeah, what are you doing? You're the DM. You don't need a player character. We don't need the help. Thanks, but no thanks. You're there to roll the dice. You're there to just make a bunch of stuff up so our adventure can go on. Power goblin spotted and promptly killed. With good reason. Another short post, so let's keep rolling on into the next one. DM brought players' actual dead brother into the game as a ghost. Oh my god, dude. This is heinous. Already, in the title, I am horrified that somebody would take it to this extent. Are you kidding me? You really thought that that was okay? Ugh. This happened a few years ago in high school. A senior of mine asked if I wanted to play D&D, and I said yes. It was me and 5 other guys at the table, including the DM. The DM was not the most, socially mature person. He often tried to appear smarter and had an attitude of, we're better than everyone else because we play D&D, to the point where it became really cringy at times. I mean, what does playing D&D make you better at? I guess imagination or something. I could make the argument that there is some merit to playing D&D, but when you make it such a big deal, it makes me think that that's really all you have in your life, and that's pretty sad. Anyways, this DM really hated us making jokes or doing any type of goofy stuff at the table. Oh, it's a serious big boy game. Edge Max Death Grind right here. To him, D&D was the best way to tell and experience stories, at least according to himself. To his credit, he did come up with a really big world with a lot of different stories, and most of them were really anime-ish, but still enjoyable for the rest of them. Yeah! And then Inuyasha showed up. Oh, great. Okay.
I want to change the world.
Well, I think I'm done. My character had a brain hemorrhage and died. Don't call me, I'll call you. One of the guys at our table, John, had to leave the game for a few months. His big brother had passed away in a car accident whom he was really close with. We kept in touch with him though and offered any support that we could. After 2 months, he started coming back to school. The DM decided to continue our old campaign, with most of the focus being on John's character and him getting the spotlight, though none of us really minded that. Yeah, on the surface, it seems like a nice gesture. He's in a bad place right now. Why not let him be the hero for a little bit, right? Well, in the second session, the DM had us explore ruins where John's character's ancestors used to live. See where this is going, right? We then met a ghost who looked exactly like John's brother, and had the same name, and even told us about how much he loved his family and his little brother. God, dude. This is heavy cringe. How did you think that this was okay? Oh! John left the table without saying anything, and the rest of us didn't even know what to say. The DM didn't know John's brother. He had never met him, but somehow he thought it was a good idea to include him 2 months after his death. Oh, God. I mean, I can see how it's done with the best intentions, especially from somebody who is emotionally stunted, as OP said, but God damn, dude. Are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
This is just so... It's the worst idea ever. We all apologized to John and asked the DM to apologize, but he couldn't see what he had done wrong. He later sent a message to John saying how he was thinking this would help provide him closure. Oh yes, role-playing my dead brother, 2 months dead brother, with some idiot that never met him. Are you kidding me? We all stopped playing after that, and I only recently started playing again on Discord. God, this DM is 100% lost in his own sauce, is he not? He's sitting there like, yeah, everybody said I'm wrong, but you shouldn't be booing me because I'm totally right. Like, you're the only one that thinks you're right about this, bro. Why would you take it to this extent? Can you not see? Just run it by a few impartial parties and see what they have to say about it. I'm shocked. Even from the title alone, I was shocked, but this is so heavy, dude. I tried to see it from the DM's point of view. I'm like, okay, maybe he is emotionally stunted and whatnot, but it's really not an excuse for doing something like this. Come on, this is like normal human stuff, right? Respect the dead, please and thank you. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna do one more story and then I'm gonna get out of here for the day. And I appreciate you guys for watching with me this far. Stealing the spotlight because I gave someone else the final kill. Oh yeah, everybody wants to be the superstar, ain't that right? Oh, I'm the biggest, baddest player of this imaginary game. Oh, are you? Are you really? Tell me all about it. I am very not interested. So this happened a week or so ago. We played a one-shot online with level 14 characters. We had agreed with the DM that optimization was fully on the table. I turned up with a Valor Bard that mostly supported our frontliners. The problem player was our Lockadin, Warlock / Paladin. Oh yeah, that's edgy right there. Lawful stupid with an Eldritch Blast. Come and get me. The whole point of his character was just fishing for critical hits and then using Eldritch Smite and Divine Smite to dish out huge damage. Yes, massively optimized. Whatever happened to just playing a game, you know? Why do we have to make it all about big numbers and whatnot? Come on. The DM had laid out an extensive dungeon for us to rip and tear through. Rip and tear. It soon became apparent that the problem player felt obliged to tell us exactly what to do. Oh, thank you so much for your knowledge. I'm gonna purposely disobey. How about that? When an enemy Misty stepped away from him, he told the DM that he wanted to attack because he had Sentinel. After being told that he couldn't because it was a teleport and not a movement, he sneered at me. OP, counterspell it. I told him that he wasn't gonna kill it next round anyways and that it wasn't worth it. All right, I thought you played a support character, but fine. Yeah, support character doesn't mean I have to lick your bum bum, all right? I added +2 to your damage roll. What else do you want from me? Here's the kicker. Once we arrived at the boss fight, some kind of devil, super original, he still hadn't really gotten to show off his smiting potential. Therefore, I teleported into the enemy's reach and used the help action on the paladin to attack the devil. Party demon, whoa! In addition to giving him inspiration, I then stepped back and described how I taunted the devil, only to drop my sword and held out my hands, stepping backwards, to provoke an opportunity attack whilst winking at the paladin. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Oh, I get to make an attack? He rolled. Nat 20. The DM described how my risky play allowed the paladin to carve the fiend in two with the power of heaven and hell. Yeah, that's pretty legit. I like that as an ending. All right, pack it in. Let's all go home. I was overjoyed as I managed to do exactly what I wanted. Help others play their character as the epic hero that they imagined. Hell yeah, lean right into that problem player's power fantasy. It's admirable, OP, but I don't think it's making it any better. Does my sword carve through OP's character as well? The paladin asked. What the hell? You dick? No! Why? What? Then we're gonna initiate PK and just play or kill the entire party? Is that how this is gonna go? Some PvP for you? That's how you want it to end? Okay, always go out with a bang. I'm gonna let it happen. The DM looked confused. I was dumbfounded. No, why would it? The paladin sighed, and in character he grumbled at me, not to get in the way of his monster killing. What? What? Are you kidding me? I'm the reason that you were able to make that hit. Oh, what a douche. We ended the session pretty soon afterwards, but the following day I woke up to a bunch of messages that I hogged the spotlight and made his character seem like a wuss for relying on your character. I know for sure that I am not playing with that same group again, which is a shame because the DM is awesome. Okay, well, pay to play. Lure that DM away. You belong to me now. TLDR, I used the help action to let someone finish the fight, and I got accused of spotlight hogging for it. That is the definition of not spotlight hogging. What are you talking about? Your ego is just so out of control, like even in game. How is that possible?
I seduced the jailer into freeing me.
Free me and tie him to the post, and I shall make thee king.
Shut up!
One shot goes from epic dungeon quest to the human bard trying to sleep with an abyssal chicken. Oh, why is it always the bard? Just sleep with everything that moves. It's what my character would do. Ugh. So that guy. Yeah, you read that title correctly. Anyways, I'm my group's forever DM, and we were taking a break because of a problem player who caused an issue, so I started looking for a one-shot to play in. I found a nice 5th edition group through my friend, and rolled up a character. Unfortunately, she's not important to this story. This story is all about Canathar the Bard. Canathar the Bard is essentially an anime character. Obnoxious monologues and buff, oily, shiny muscles. For his portrait, the player sent a picture of Jotaro. Deep in this dungeon, we ran into this abo elf and some abyssal chickens. We all roll initiative and Canathar goes first. He proudly shouts, "I want to seduce the chicken." DM, what? Canathar, "I want to make love to the chicken." DM, you're a whole different species? Canathar, I'll polymorph, then sleep with it next round. DM, Okay. No, not okay. This creature's in the middle of combat. This creature has no interest in being seduced right now. And similar to me, the entire table goes, WTF, DM. It's a creative solution. I mean, I can't say no to that. Oh, but you can. The rest of the party attacks, and Canathar's turn starts up again. He goes to try and seduce the chicken. DM lets him use his character's charisma as opposed to the chicken's. Some number well over 20 is rolled, and he, of course, succeeds. The dungeon master begins to describe the situation, but Canathar blurts out, "Once I'm in, I'm going to switch back to human form." Okay. Dungeon master finishes describing his act and talks about how the chicken is split in half after Canathar's transformation because of his super penis. Me and the party decided we didn't want to play anymore. TLDR, Forever DM joins a one-shot and leaves after the bard bangs a chicken and kills it with his massive anime dong. Well, it seems to me both Canathar and the DM have a little bit more research to do on how chickens reproduce, okay? It's called a cloaca. So essentially, you would just be rubbing your dong against this chicken. There's no penetration involved whatsoever with chickens. And even if there was, it's an abyssal chicken. Like, you can make up rules to make it so this sort of thing would be either unable to happen or an extremely bad idea to make happen. Does anybody want to see cloaca dentata? That would be horrible. Also, I don't think that a chicken would be split in half like that. Like, wouldn't your wang experience much more damage than the chicken's bones? Like, there's no bones in a wang, right? I don't know why I'm trying to have this discussion. This is not Fatal, okay? We're playing D&D 5th edition. You want to do this stuff? Go to Fatal. But this is the path that I've chosen to tread, so I think we'll be seeing more things similar to this a bit later in the episode. But for now, let us see what other filth can be brought upon us. An unexpected situation, or how to alienate friends and disgust others. All right, TLDR right at the front. My game was invaded by that guy, who proceeded to be as horrifying, racist, and insensitive as one could possibly be, but thankfully only for one session. So that's good. We get the trigger warnings right up front. Please buckle in for this one. I tend to be fairly long-winded when I tell stories, so fair warning to those with little time or interest. For those along for the ride, just know that I appreciate you being with us. Aw, samesies, OP. Thank you for sharing your horrible, scarring experience with us. This story occurred around 6 years ago. I had some very light experiences with tabletop RPGs, mostly 3.5 edition, previous to that time, but nothing that lasted any longer than 1 or 2 sessions, and certainly never as a DM. That changed when Critical Role entered my life. I really wanted to play again, but nobody I knew was willing to DM, even though a couple of people had done it before, so I decided to bite the bullet and throw together my own campaign. Oh, that's the real MVP move. Sacrifice your sanity so that others might play. At the time, I was working in a chain pizzeria, and I managed to convince a couple of my coworkers and my then girlfriend to be my players for one night a week. We didn't have the space to play in my house, as it was very small, so we decided to play in the restaurant. My group consisted of my then girlfriend S for Sorcerer, coworker B for Barbarian, coworker R for Ranger, and coworker 2's friend, who is that guy. He played a rogue, but I mean, who gives a shit, really? They always play rogues. That guy is always a rogue or a bard. Dex classes. If we got rid of all the Dex classes, our problem might go away. Now, sessions 0 through 5 to 6 were pretty damn good, even if I do say so myself. I'd basically given them carte blanche for character creation, as long as they kept it within reason, and as a result, my players were engaged with the NPCs, the story, and most importantly, with each other. The party had just freed a whole bunch of people from captivity, and consumption, most likely, in an underground goblin tunnel complex. They made it back to town and had been handsomely rewarded for their efforts. Outside of game, the ranger had brought up the possibility of his friend maybe joining. Now, I had never met this person, but Ranger vouched for him, and I thought that was sufficient. Since we only had the 4 of us, including myself, I figured it couldn't hurt. I trusted Ranger to give that guy the rundown of how I ran my game, what to expect, and how character creation should work. This, I think, was my biggest mistake. Session 6 or 7 rolls around, I honestly don't remember which it was, and Ranger's friend shows up. He seems nice enough, and he has a character all done up. It's a pretty stock rogue assassin, but he's being cagey about certain things, especially their physical description and backstory. Okay, no worries, he must just want to do that in game. This, dear reader, is known as a red flag. Inside the game, the party had split into 2 groups to get their shopping done. Sorcerer and Barbarian are in the general store perusing the shelves, looking to outfit themselves for their next assignment. This, another mistake I think, is where I give that guy his chance to integrate into the party. His character is nightmarish. He waits in the corner, watching the party but not hiding. He's 6'7", with skin of the darkest ebony, and a metal Hannibal Lecter type face mask that obscures the lack of skin, including eyelids, underneath. What the hell? Oh, a sweatshirt of his own mother's hair, whom he sexually assaulted and devoured, covers his chest, and he wears nothing else. This is the guy who you're gonna let into your party? Hello, I'm wearing this sweater of my own mother's hair. Oh, well, that's kind of sweet. Oh, no, you don't understand. I assaulted and devoured her. What a little scamp. Let's let him tag along. No. His lack of trousers allows him to describe his character as a eunuch, having surgically removed his own genitalia. God, that's horrible. This thing stands in a corner, breathing heavily and just staring at the party members. In particular, at the sorcerer, who is now, like the rest of us, visibly shocked, both in and outside of game. And I was shocked as well. So shocked that I failed to put the brakes on then and there. Another big mistake. Come on, OP. You're supposed to be driving the train. Be like, no, that's not going to work for me. Roll another character. Get this crap out of here. So, Sorcerer and Barbarian decide, like any normal person would, to avoid eye contact with that creature in the corner and quickly make their way out of the store, hightailing it to the party's camp just outside of town. That guy follows them at a distance, attempting to stalk them. He rolls high and succeeds in following them without being noticed. That is, until he's spotted just outside of their camp, hiding in some undergrowth. At this point, I'm hoping that maybe this is some kind of joke, and that his real character is suddenly gonna jump out of nowhere and assassinate this abomination. Sorcerer yells into the darkness of the forest, challenging that guy to show himself, and that guy says nothing. She warns him that if he doesn't come out, she's gonna burn down the vegetation, and him with it. Again, no response. She proceeds to second level burning hands everything that she can see, dumping a sorcery point for empowered, severely burning that guy in the process. That guy pulls out his dagger and charges them, bursting out of the bushes, hair sweater ablaze, screaming at the top of his lungs. Ranger had been holding his action and looses an arrow, critting that guy as soon as he breaks cover, dropping him down to 1 hit point. That guy drops to his knees, bleeding and burning. Sorcerer stands over him, pulling out her own dagger and holding it to his throat. "Give me one good reason why I shouldn't kill you," she said, holding him up by the sweater. Oh boy, that's choice words.
"No, master, please!"
He screamed.
"Don't kill this here nice guy. I mean's a good house nice guy. I mean's a good boy."
Oh my god. We're all speechless, mouths agape. Keep in mind that this guy just yelled this into an open for business restaurant dining room. God. A restaurant that most of us at the table worked in. People were there at their own tables eating dinner. Well, realizing what had just happened, we all begin to gather our things. Sorceress throws out that she kills that guy's character. I quickly agree that this indeed happens. And we all get the hell out of Dodge, with that guy smirking and chuckling to himself the whole time. Ugh, he never came back to play again, which is just as well because I sure as hell wouldn't have allowed him to. Amazingly, we never got any complaints from customers that night. I don't know if Ranger continued to associate with him either. I hope not. After that, my girlfriend and I decided that, oh yeah, we had enough space in the house after all. So we moved our weekly game there. It continued on for a while. Another coworker joined us eventually, before the game slowly faded without a very satisfying conclusion. Needless to say, I have learned several important lessons from that session. Everything that happened could have been avoided if I would have been more attentive and discerning. In my defense, I can only say that I was young and inexperienced. Happily, I'm now running a game with my friends that's been going on for almost 3 years. And that, as they say, dear reader, is that. Well, Jesus, OP, you know what they say about birds of a feather. Is Ranger good? Like, I would have a serious conversation with that boy. Like, you vouched for this guy, okay? What is the deal with that? Please give me just one explanation of how the hell this happened. The dude obviously went into the game knowing that he was going to be disgusting and just kind of doubled down on it. I do like the fact that everybody just got up and walked away at a certain point, but that certain point probably should have been way before that, like when dude is standing there describing his own genitalia. Holy God, what an absolute mess. This is one of the best RPG horror stories. Because literally, it is a horror story. They were stalked from the general goods shop to their camp by some abomination. And luckily, I mean, points to Ranger, he did loose an arrow into that guy who he supposedly brought to the game. But yeah, what did this dude think was gonna happen? You know what I mean? I guess his whole goal was like just to play or kill some people, which seems pretty lame, although I have done that in some field sessions that I did with Ramtide. You know, that you wake up with a rock thing. Well, my character was an illiterate mute named Poopfist who broke into another player's base. They'd set up in some police station, and I basically just went in there to steal some of their stuff. Ended up getting locked in a jail cell and almost incinerated. But yeah, that game also ended without a very satisfying conclusion, so I'm kind of sad about that. I do enjoy player killing if it's for, you know, spicing up the game. I don't mind being the one that's killed, especially when your character is as easy to make as it is in field. I swear Ramtide needs to monetize that game sometime, and then you just hear people sitting around talk about, you wake up in a field with a rock. A boof it. And that'll spawn some RPG horror stories all on their own. But yeah, this guy obviously a total freak. I'd be looking at Ranger like he's a little sus after vouching for this guy to get into the game. Whoo boy. Well, We got one more story to go, so let's knock that out, and then I'm gonna get out of here for today. But I definitely hope you've been enjoying some not safe for work RPG horror stories. You failed at breaking into the palace. The guards do not fall for your seduction roll. See, here we go again with the seduction. Every goddamn time. And here's what his character was wearing. Don't want to keep that on the screen too long. Quick note. This guy refused to roll anything other than his profession. Dominatrix with a seduce skill. Even when I outright told him that diplomacy would be better. I trimmed a lot of the 3-hour session down, but he was warned and cautioned multiple times, and he would not be swayed from this path, even after his character got arrested. Some good examples of the GM saying, no, that's not what happened. No. I allowed everyone to pick a profession in one of my campaigns, and I told them that we would have some downtime, and I would be having them roll to use that profession to make some money. Most players picked something useful, like they're an alchemist. Awesome, cheap potions for the group. One player made a very big deal that his
female character was a dominatrix and fought with a whip.
Oh, God. This is the pinnacle of humor for some beards. We was talking about this in the Discord a couple days ago. He described her outfit in detail. Think the Dark Mistress from Dungeon Master 2. All right, sure, okay. And honestly, I'd probably be okay with it being okay at this point, but I'm gonna be watching. This has put the red flag to half-mast. So the downtime rolls around, and I meet with each player separately to go over how they are making their money. I ask that guy what his plan is, if he finds a brothel to moonlight at, or how he goes about finding clients. He got so offended.
Excuse me? Why would I work in a brothel? I'm a lady.
Do you know what a brothel is? Dude, you're wearing skin-tight leather with strategic cutouts, but okay, whatever. What do you do during the downtime then if you aren't making money?
I seduced the Duke.
Yeah, no. You're a new arrival to town. You have a reputation for being a troublemaker here since you barged into a religious service and started going on about how
sexual restrictions are evil.
I'm pretty sure the clerics of Iomedai don't care who you sleep with or how you go about it, so long as you aren't evil, but you are not allowed access to the Duke's palace. You are turned away at the gate.
I wait until night, and I use my climbing kit to climb up to his rooms.
Please don't. This isn't going to end well at all. This is going to be a disaster, but yeah, okay. Roll climb and stealth to sneak past the guards. Oh, sorry, they rolled higher than you. You're now surrounded by guards and being held at sword point. They are ordering you to surrender.
I seduced them.
Seduce them all. Gotta seduce them all. You don't. I'm sorry, but there's no roll high enough to do more than have them escort you from the city. You broke into the palace after being turned away. You've harassed clerics and run around half-dressed in a fairly conservative city. Your best bet here is to just let him put you on a wagon out of town and take the fact that you are now banned from the city. And I would recommend rolling something other than your profession, seduce. Diplomacy would be better suited and wouldn't have a negative modifier due to their attitudes towards you.
I roll to seduce them.
Okay, you fail. You rolled a 5. Since you're ignoring them, a guard tries to grapple you. The guard succeeds in his grapple check and you're dragged off to prison. An official letter is sent to your party members stating that you will be released when they leave town tomorrow.
I seduced the jailer into freeing me and taking me to the Duke.
Well, that's a one-trick pony if I ever see one. Okay, dude, this isn't happening. I told you when you made the character that your reputation would affect who you were able to get as a client. I also told you that we would not be role-playing sex of any sort. It would just be a few dice rolls to see how it went and how much they paid you. You have a massively horrible reputation in this and now surrounding cities. The jailer is not going to come and see you because you're not worth his time, and the guards don't have the keys to the cell. I'm sorry this has gone so sideways, but listen, why don't we retcon this session and try again tomorrow? You can think of a different strategy, and you would find lots of work at a brothel or even a tavern.
I am a lady. I don't work at brothels or taverns. I'm better than that. I demand to see the jailer so I can seduce him.
Yeah, well, we're done for the day. This isn't going anywhere. Again, I'm sorry this went so sideways, and my offer to retcon everything and try again tomorrow still stands. That's the last day I have time to do something with you until our game night, so just let me know in the morning. And I disconnected from the chat. I wish I could say I was sad when he decided to leave our game over this, but I wasn't. Sounds to me like he needed to roll some seduction IRL, am I right? Maybe then all his rolls would have succeeded. All his dreams could have come true. Take time for a little snacky snack. That's what I do.
I thought you were trying to lose weight.
Lay off me, I'm starving.
Star Wars campaign started and ended in a single day. A decade or so back, I decided to try and GM a custom adventure from Fantasy Flight's Star Wars RPG. No custom races or guns, etc., but I handmade a setting that tried to fit into the game universe. I met some mid-20 age randos at my local college library for the first session. There was no session 0. My first mistake. For this campaign, I did a ton of prep work. Pulled up a Star Wars star map, found a planet, crafted a very plausible setting of a Corps that was looking to mine some rare resource on the planet, but was having troubles with some very primitive locals. The group was to fly to the orbital station, accept a contract to hunt them down, and weaken them enough to let the Corps operate in peace, and then head planetside and get going. Yes, it does sound a lot like Avatar. No, I'm not ashamed of that. Self-awareness is important. I knew some players might figure this out, so I made a lot of adjustments. When they arrived on the planet, they would be accosted by a skirmish party, but would most likely wipe the scouts out. From there on, I had multiple branches where the group could go. The skirmishers would have weapons that the Corps said they shouldn't have, and attentive players would want to find out why. There would be an ancient wrecked ship hidden deep in the jungle where the group would find Jedi or Sith tech, or something that the natives were using to defend themselves. The group would be captured at some point and taken to a military camp. They would have the option of joining the natives and fighting back. They could go rogue and look for the ship to loot it, possibly fix it and take it, or figure out what it was doing when it crashed and try to complete its original mission. They could double down with the Corps and fully wipe the native tribe out. If they resisted, there was an out, where the Corps would buy out the contract and allow them to leave without further pursuing them. This game has a mechanic where making enemies can have lasting effects in later adventures. I had planned for the campaign to go in many directions in case the group was just bored or perhaps inventive, but I was not prepared for chaotic stupid. The player group jumped right in, landed in the docking bay with several other ships. The Corps had put out a call for adventurers and mercenaries, so the group would be one of many going planetside. This could have led the group to making friends or enemies with the other groups, yet another way to spice up the campaign. They walked into the lobby of the docking bay, and shit went south so fast. One player decided some rando Wookiee merc, also there for the contract, looked at him funny, so he was going to start a fight. Another wanted to vault over the secretary's desk in the lobby to hack the computer for secrets. All of this in a core lobby full of armed and armored security, mercs, droids, and witnesses. I warned them that these actions would not go well. I had a guard push said hacker wannabe back over the counter and told Brawler Man to calm it down. Hacker decided to pull a holdout blaster and point blank shoot said guard. Oh boy, there we go. The other players drew weapons and started shouting. Deep sigh, roll for initiative. In the end, the shootout between core security, two other pissed mercenary groups, and said player group of morons involved a few grenades, shoddy pistol work, and an angry Wookiee throwing one player through a wall and a near TPK. Can't remember the finer details, but the group did not make it any further than the lobby. The last surviving player, under gunpoint of head security, was escorted back to his player ship, his dead crew piled in the cargo hold, and told to warp out or they, the core, will Alderaan his ass. At this point, the other players got mad that the first fight
was too hard, and I was being a difficult GM.
You were not supposed to get into a fight. All you had to do was sit through a PowerPoint, eat a space cookie, sign a contract, then leave and go planetside. And then you could shoot and loot.
But that's what my character would have done.
Classic. We ended the session not much longer after, and the players opted to do something else the next day. Always have a session 0. What my character would have done my ass, dude. If your character was honestly that stupid, they would have died much younger than they currently are. But I guess whether you're playing D&D or Star Wars or Pathfinder or whatever else, murder hobos will be there. Now we've got murder hobos in space. It's too ridiculous, dude. Honestly, I think that OP should probably be glad that this is the way that it ended, because really, how well could a group like this actually perform in any sort of RPG? Okay, they didn't get in a fight, you get them down on the planet, it's still gonna be like herding cats. So perhaps this was the most merciful way for things to end. Good lord. Anyways, we got plenty of these stories, so let's jump into another one. Oh, and this one's a compilation. Star Wars Horror Stories, plural. I would love to play a Star Wars RPG for once that doesn't fall apart before session 1 or turn into a small-scale horror story. However, for me, this has yet to happen. Here are some snippets.
The hypocrisy is strong with you.
Joined a game of Edge of the Empire, focused around the Outer Rim in the original trilogy timeline, basically like Wild West roleplay in space. 2 players refuse to tell the rest of the group what they are playing before the game. Weird, but okay. No, not okay. My character might not know, but I definitely need to know out of character, okay? I don't want no weird surprises. Then the first session begins. Both of them present their characters. Both are lightsaber-wielding Mandalorians, one being a fully fledged Jedi, the other dual wields them. God. Okay, in a post-Order 66 setting, I kind of roll my eyes about that and ignore it until the 2 loudly complain to the DM.
He can't dual-wield lightsabers. There's no Jedi left to have trained him in it. He would have cut off his own arms,
argues the Mandalorian Jedi with a lightsaber. Well, the other Mando joins the argument, shouting at the Mando Jedi for being jealous that his character's just way cooler than his and that he has to suck it up. Their insults last for about 5 minutes until the DM just completely deletes the Discord and is never heard from again. Abandoned ship, bro. That DM is the smartest person in this campaign. Look, I don't really want to play anymore. Bye. So funny. Edge of the Empire. Edge is already included. Joined an Edge of the Empire game. DM clearly stated in the recruiting post that it will be a heroic campaign, with ex-bandits and other fringe society people rising up to be the hope of the people. Also, no Force-sensitive characters, at least not at the start. They hint that we might unlock Force potential later on. I joined the Discord, a handful of other players do the same. I think about playing a medic or something like that, and I asked around what they think. And they want to play Sith. Every single one of them. The DM states again that this is Edge of the Empire. It's a heroic campaign. And again, there will be no Force-sensitive characters, let alone trained Force users. And they all throw a tantrum.
If you don't want us to play Force users, why offer to play Star Wars at all?
Boy. They all leave. I remain. The DM tries to get new people. Doesn't find any. Game disbands before session 1. Not only did these people obviously not read the post, but I don't think they actually get what playing a Star Wars RPG is all about. You don't have to be a Force user, and if you are going to be a Force user, wouldn't it be much more gratifying if you gain those Force powers later on? You're there for the journey of your character instead of just being like, yeah, I play like the badassest dude ever. Okay, how interesting. Have we all forgotten the art of character development? I'm sorry you weren't able to find more people. It sounds like a cool thing to me. Force users in general are like such a small population, the tiniest fraction of people that exist in Star Wars. That's one of the reasons that I love the Battlefront games so much. You could just go out there as a stormtrooper or a Wookiee and shoot your little blaster, have a good old time. We didn't need Jedi's Battlefront 2. But I guess that is a complaint for another day. So let's get one more story, a very beefy story, and then I'll probably get out of here. So let's check it out. The Star Wars Saga of Super Serious Nick. Thought it was going to be Serious Sam. But it's Nick. This is a story about FFG's great Star Wars system. I've been GMing the game since it came out while I was in college. My previous experiences in tabletop role-playing games weren't amazing, particularly my first time playing D&D 4th edition. Oh, we'll have to check out that post at some point. But once I got the CRB for this Star Wars game, I was beyond excited. However, not many people played it at the time, so I wound up GMing rather than playing it myself, and I stayed GMing pretty exclusively for years. I've always wanted to be a player, but even on Roll20, I'd only gotten into a one-shot maybe once or twice. I mention all of this to show how absolutely mind-blowingly excited I was to play a campaign that I applied to on Roll20 this year. The campaign was described as Rebel Task Force, and it was basically described as Suicide Squad, but as rebels. You son of a bitch, I'm in. Yeah, I guess it sounds kind of cool. Suicide Squad as a movie is not a very good movie, but the premise is pretty ultra cool. A bunch of people applied with their character ideas for their rebel. I did see a couple of cool ones. A standard Twilight girl that saw the Empire decimate her village and wanted to fight against them while healing others. A droid that worked in a diner but was running from the Empire after accidentally downloading secret intel. I love that. A blind Jedi that uses his force powers to augment his fists rather than use a lightsaber. Cool stuff. Then came my application. My character was none other than Crass Donovac, military commander and known figurehead for the rebellion. One of the rebellion's first recruits with any semblance of military expertise. Crass was proud to serve after flunking out of the Imperial Academy. No, not that. I mean realizing that the Empire could not be allowed to continue while he drew breath. He was a mid-40s human, always smirking for the cameras with his luscious blonde hair, peace, and a rippling 16-pack underneath his padded rebellion armor. Who knew that one-lining things could be so funny? I like it. he once blew up an impending doom fleet of 2 TIE fighters by only sacrificing 3 Corvettes and the entire farming crop on Florida 7 that he was sent to watch over. Oh, yeah, now it's all coming together. He was a womanizing, smirking, courageous man, and a complete and utter ripoff of Zapp Brannigan from Futurama. Which I didn't put together until that last sentence. Damn, dude, what a great show. You know, can we bring back Futurama, but not ruin it? I'd like it to go on for 30 seasons, all of The Simpsons, but not become The Simpsons. You know what I mean? But I guess Matt Groening's on to bigger and better things, so no worries there. So yeah, OP's got an awesome character, and of course, he was contacted by the GM through Roll20 in Discord, saying that I had made the cut for the roster that he'd selected based on having a well-rounded party, so I could be the face of the group, with Crass's impeccable charm and deception skills. We all agreed to a session 0 over Discord to talk about the game and introduce everyone's characters to the group. Session 0 comes. We all join the voice chat, and there's one person that also turns on their webcam. This was Super Serious Nick. The GM introduces us all and tells us a bit about the theme of the game previously stated. We all said, yeah, it sounds awesome, and began introducing our characters. The only girl in the group, the Twi'lek named Lufty, went first. She gave us about 3 minutes of backstory, pretty standard stuff. Nick listens intensely, and after she's done, he says,
For the purpose of my role-playing, I'd like to get a little more information.
He then begins what can only really be described as a 10-minute long interrogation about this woman's character.
How old is she? How did the Empire decimate her village? Did anyone survive? How long has she been with the rebellion?
While these may be valid questions, it should be noted that none of our characters have even met yet. We're all going to meet in character during session 1, so there's actually no reason for him to know all of this background information on anyone's character
for the purpose of role-playing.
After Nick was satisfied, I ask, so what you're saying is she's new to the rebellion, but has lofty aspirations. That's a good one, though. And everyone laughs, except Super Serious Nick. He only rolls his eyes. And I only know that he rolled his eyes because he's the only one of us with his webcam on. Next character introduces themselves, the diner droid. Nick does the same thing. Tons of background questions about
how the rebellion came upon this droid, the intel he downloaded.
And again, all these things that he didn't really need to know. We were all malleable to changing our backstories if we needed to anyways. I inquire that maybe the secret intel was the Empire's recipe for the perfect space chili fries. Everyone laughs again, except Super Serious Nick. He rolls his eyes. And again, I only know that he rolled his eyes because he's the only one of us with his webcam on. This happened for another 1 or 2 characters, and boy, oh boy, was I ready for Nick to hear about my character. I explained my backstory and made a couple of jokes along the way, doing my Zapp Brannigan impression voice to the rest of the group, whom all seemed amused. Except Super Serious Nick, of course. And anytime someone laughed, Nick would roll his eyes, as there must always be some balance in the universe. I finally jokingly called him out, saying that I'm enjoying all the eye rolling from Nick. His face is dead serious as he responds,
a little too much whimsy for me.
Yes. We wouldn't want our campaign about space wizards and lasers to have any whimsy, would we? Star Wars is a space opera, Nick. It's supposed to be over the top. This I don't understand why he's taking it so seriously. He must be fun at parties. Nick then responds further with slight ire in his voice.
That's a great opportunity for me to ask about the tone of this campaign. Are we going to be serious rebels on a deadly Black Ops mission, or is this some kind of comedic band of misfits?
The GM, flustered, says that essentially we can be both. Some people might want to play a bit more comedic-based character, and some might want to play the straight man. It's our game, he just wants to make it fun for us and all of our different personalities. Nick's deadpan serious expression begins to turn Super Saiyan serious. Now, I know I made a jokey character, and even though Nick is kind of being a dick, I didn't want him to think that I was there just to troll. So I speak up and say, hey man, I've been GMing this game for over 7 years now. I rarely get to be a player, and I'm really excited to be here. And I'm definitely not here to kick over anyone's sandcastle. I just like to be comedic because it's how I have fun. And I find it works particularly well when I'm the face character that's going to have to do a lot of lying and charming to get us through the game. I don't like playing a serious persona, because all it takes is a few ones rolled in a single session to make it hard to keep a straight face sometimes. As much as Crass may not take the game's situation seriously, I do, and I'm excited to play with you. That seemed to sate Nick's bloodlust, at least for the time being, and he said
He was glad that I elaborated.
And then it was Nick's turn to explain his character. If you've read this far and you've got any experience with Nick's type, you probably already know what type of character he made. It was a human that's incredibly skilled in firearms and has a backstory all about all the criminal syndicates that he's worked for. He made it a point to say that the rebellion met him when they staged a prison break for another rebel, and he just happened to tag along. He made it a point for the rebellion to not be aware of all
The things he's done in service of bad people.
that his character is just
Doing what it takes to survive in this galaxy.
basically every Garth Ennis character. We didn't have many questions about his backstory, which Nick was probably sad about. He wanted to be the interesting one and be able to go off. But unfortunately, edgy criminal / orphan is about as cookie cutter as it gets in RPGs. Well, Nick left the session first, saying
He had some stuff to do.
after everything was established and we were just kind of chatting for a while, the woman playing Lefty said Nick's gonna have to put his computer monitor on the ceiling with all the eye rolling that he's doing. I was excited for session 1, and I had Nick pretty much pegged as a guy that was just gonna hate any
Whimsy.
that I brought to the game. But I really did want this to work, so I internally made it my mission to try and be this guy's friend in-game. During session 1, we're all on a rebel base, and we meet in our bunks. The base comes under attack from Imperials, and we need to move out and investigate to see how we can help. Crass leads half the party until we meet up with Nick's character and the other half of the party. Obviously, the first thing Nick does is point his gun at me and spend 10 minutes interrogating Crass. I, in accent, stumble through enough questions that Nick is finally satisfied, at least seemingly so. We go down a hallway until we happen upon a door to our left and a hallway to our right. Crass scouts the door and finds the mess hall. He finds a bunch of food from breakfast that's still ready to eat, takes an armful, and presents Nick with a bantha dog. Nick says,
I ignore him and walk down the hallway.
huh, friendship is harder than it looks. I like OP, man. This is good stuff. We end up fighting a squad of stormtroopers. GM says to roll initiative. Crass takes the first slot, and I asked if there's a way for me to roll charm or deception on these stormtroopers before they fire. This is pretty unorthodox, but I figured that it is worth an ask. FFG's system is more narrative-based than mechanic-based. I figured that at best I could distract them while possibly giving an advantage to the rest of the party's actions. The GM agrees, I spout some lies, get an incredibly hard difficulty roll, and Nick gets angry because I won it with flying colors. He finally gets his chance to shoot and we win the encounter. The session ends shortly afterwards. Everyone leaves except for me, who wanted to talk to the GM for a bit. He seemed a little flustered during the game, stammering through a lot of his exposition and scene descriptions. I asked if he's played a lot of this system before, and he confesses to me that this is actually the first campaign that he's ever run in any system. I told him, well, he's doing great, and he should try to relax a little. It's only Star Wars, and most of us are seemingly having a great time. Nick chose to leave the campaign after that session, obviously, telling the GM that his style was just
not the roleplay experience he was looking for.
Which I'm sure is true. And I hope he gets his desired campaign where he can properly tout his Omega Dark backstory and be super serious Warhammer Nick somewhere else. And I do regret giving him my Bantha dog. That's right, you can't fight on an empty stomach, Nick. That's basic, Nick. Take time for a little snacky snack. That's what I do. Let's call him Pat.
It's time for androgyny. Here comes Pat.
The one mandatory role to invalidate the working class. Wait, hold on. Can they do that? Please don't do that. So a few nights back, me and my friend group had played another session of the long-running campaign that we've grown a ritual for. Partially homebrew, but with canon Forgotten Realms elements. We've been playing this thing for about a year, and all of our characters have amassed pages of just lore and key moments that defined our characters and what they do. For clarification of my events, my character is a human who's been fused with the exterior of a warforged. They grew up on the Swords Coast and are an arcane trickster rogue whose main goal is evening the playing field in Waterdeep, given how imbalanced the power has grown between the everyman and the royal heirs. We've canonically gotten past the Waterdeep Dragon Heist module regarding the whole vault plot point, but our DM has given a full expansion of the socio-political state of Waterdeep, so the vault feels less like a big reward or just one moral quandary. But it will be something that we will see the effects of sessions afterwards, as it's our world that our characters will be living in, given that they unearthed the 500,000 gold and more from the vault, which was a spoiler, so sorry if you haven't played Waterdeep Dragon Heist, which we had opted to give to a small organized group that we made to attempt to try and stimulate a growth within the poorer regions of Waterdeep, while also having a contingency in case things got a bit hairy. This is all important as subtext for the session that we just had. Including the character description? No, that's good. Go off, OP. I'm still with you. So we started ourselves off after a combat encounter that we had with a couple of goons that were strays from Xanathar's guild. This leads us to the docks near a criminal organization we knew, but we also had a decent connection with them. So we go down into their territory, and we all meet up. We see associates that we had met with before, and this all ties back to some stuff from our prior sessions. At this point, communications are quite cordial, and things seem chill. We're going around the hideout until we see two of the NPCs playing a simple dice game. I join in for the fun of it, along with two other PCs. I managed to get 2 perfect rolls, and pulled the pot with over 400 plus gold and called it quits. I had no interest in playing further, and it was all in good fun. Little did any of us know, the Dungeon Master wasn't satisfied with quitsies. Him and his friend, who is also in this session, got done binging the entirety of the fucking Pirates of the Caribbean series. Why is it fucking... That's a pretty good series. Don't do that, OP. I enjoy adventures on the high seas, okay? This resulted in the entire gang and our party being rounded up into one room where the DM basically shoved aside any obstacles or means of deception or cheating through spells, and the leader of the organization insisted that we play liar's dice. We were all quite lukewarm to the idea, other than one of us who was ecstatic. Now, with this in mind, the way that our Dungeon Master thought was a logical way to incentivize us playing was him giving us a clear motive: competition. This wasn't by setting up any challenge, information, or even a new lore beat. He just chose our magic items at random and had the leader basically say to the group,
"You have to bet that and play at least one round, And in compensation, I'll give you this coin as a means of summoning us and a sign of respect.
Well, that's railroading and bullshit, and I don't want to play. For realsy reals. Out of all the magic items he picked, he chose literally the clothes that my character was wearing, which was a magic item tied to my spellcasting. It had enough for it to qualify as a legendary magic item, so given crafting and magic item tier pieces, it had landed about 500,000 gold. My character is completely against betting and gambling most of the time, unless it's an actually harmless amount that they deem being bet, because they often want cold hard percentages, and not to meddle with odds when they don't have to, and would rather opt into being charitable with their goods rather than wasteful through gambling. So this entire situation was completely against my character's personality, as I was the instigator for us using the rewards from the Waterdeep Dragon arc to give to the public, and yet I didn't feel I had the place to initiate combat because the leader in question just had a whole arc tied to the Castlanters, and I wouldn't want to ruin reputations over something like that, so I just played along with a lack of interest in it, and I watched as the other players were handing over stuff that was barely over 200 gold. Oh boy, you are being targeted for sure. The DM then used the organization's leader and henchmen to set our sitting formation for Liar's Dice in such a way where the only person who could benefit from calling out bluffs and bluffing really was the PC that Marathon Pirates of the Caribbean with the Dungeon Master, his friend. This was because he did a weird modified version of a pot where the winner didn't actually get the goods on the table, but they'd get whatever they bet against the other person. Okay? Getting a little lost now. It's like White Elephant, but with dice or something. So realistically, this just extended the length of the game to the better half of 4 hours. Oh, God. Nope, can't do it. I'm fucking out. I called myself out by round 2 after, for the second round, I just handed over the spellbook of a player character that we had booted out long ago due to them being a problem player, and their subclass was tied to chronergy. Now, I did this bet because I didn't think that I could just write down another subclass's spells when I'm already another subclass of wizard, and on top of that, other than the few spells there, it'd have all the same exact spells due to us having the same base class listings. I didn't think that this would be important, but apparently it was, because after this prolonged dice game was finally fucking over, the Dungeon Master had the nerve to take one of the faction leaders we brought along and have them go on this thing about,
"What you did there was stupid. This world doesn't take well to the school of magic that you and your late friend practiced. Maybe you should think more before pawning off such powerful things like that."
even though the person that would win the spellbook in the end was a mutual ally of ours and not just some stranger as it was being framed. Luckily, the session didn't last much longer after that, as half of our party was just fatigued from how lackluster the entire thing was. But I can't help but be really irritated that I was made to defy my character in a forced round of something that none of us had interest in. And then I got lambasted by an NPC for betting a spellbook, even though I already have one, and they just disregard the 500,000 bet that I was forced to put down. Boy, I tell you, I would have left that session quick, fast, in a hurry. Like, okay, this isn't something that my character would do, and you're gonna force me into it. Well, guess what? I'm gonna walk away. Kill my character if you need to. I'm not gonna be missing out on anything because, honestly, this DM is just crap, man. Railroading his players into a gambling scenario, and then doing that shit for 4 hours. Ugh, everybody at the end's just completely tired. Probably feels like they wasted a large chunk of their life, and they did. All at the behest of this weird DM who either loves gambling or hates his players or didn't have any better ideas. I have no idea what his thought process was going into this. Probably saw OP making a little gamble and he's like, oh, this is a plot point now. Please, don't ever do this. And if you're a player, don't ever let the DM get away with this. It's okay to walk away, as you probably should have done, OP, but I applaud you for sticking it through. Unfortunately, you'll never get that chunk of your life back. Anyways, let's jump on into another story. DM/player thinks the game is all about himself. I'm the hero. Okay. I've been playing D&D with the same group of friends for nearly 3 years now. We've lost and added a person here and there, but the group has mostly been the same for the majority of the time that we've been playing. It started with one of the friends, let's call him Pat, offering to create a campaign for us to play in so we could give it a shot. We all thoroughly enjoyed it, and now, nearly 3 years later, we are still playing that same campaign, but with very different feelings than when we first started. Ominous. That campaign was the beginning of a long road for all of us, and the one that created our first ever D&D characters. We rolled stats one night, came up with some vague backstories, and were launched into a world that we knew nothing about. I would say that the journey we went on from level 1 to level 7 was just about the most fun that we ever had in that campaign. Even up to level 9, we were still doing things that we thoroughly enjoyed and had fun playing the game together. During that time, though, we began to notice that Pat had a little bit of a god complex. The world that we had initially been told he created himself was slowly turning into a weird amalgamation of various different pieces of media. For the most part, no one really cared about this too much because the game was still fun, but slowly, this conglomeration began to noticeably only reward 3 of the players at the table. 2 friends that I'll refer to as Mark and Steve, and myself. At this point, Mark and I had both learned slightly more about the incredible variety of content that D&D had to offer, including a well-known show called Critical Role. And it was during this time that we began to notice more story elements that we had been through mirroring those of outside media. It had gone just from the world we were in to actual manipulation of the story to mimic something that we didn't quite know. What began to irk me, though, was just how similar my character's arc was beginning to look to Fjord's from Critical Role. I was playing a paladin of Heimdall who had been gifted a cursed sword that instead put him in the hands of Asmodeus, who wanted him to follow his bidding, very similar to how Yucatoa works with Fjord. Later, my character would deny Asmodeus, who in retaliation killed Heimdall, leaving me a paladin with no powers and no god. It seems like being gifted a cursed sword was actually, gasp, a curse. I'm just razzing you, OP. That does suck. The DM has essentially just destroyed this player character. Yeah, just like that. Something that I had built my entire character around was shattered and tossed away like it didn't even matter. And before anyone says anything, yes, I know paladins are supposed to get their powers from their oath, not their god, but in the words of Pat,
That's not how it works in my campaign.
Immediately, my character was offered a token that would grant him his powers, but from a deity that he didn't know. Uh-oh. More than that, the morals that he had built his life upon, protecting others and upholding justice, were now replaced with a very questionable oath that could ask him to turn to evil just to uphold the sacred balance. Yeah, I felt cheated, and as though my character was no longer my own. But it was this moment that really helped me see everything that everyone else had been through too, up to that point. My character was one of the last that had been changed. I guess I had just been too stubborn, but none of us had the same character that we started out with. Hence, I guess why you're having less fun. I don't mean that in a they died and had to be replaced kind of way either. It was still our character, but Pat had just modified each of them to fit what he wanted to see in the game, not what we wanted from our characters. More railroading. Choo-choo! Everywhere you look. Choo-choo! On top of blatantly changing our characters without even checking with us first, Pat had slowly been building us up to be champions of the gods in this world, eerily similar to the way Vox Machina gathered the vestiges of Divergence and became champions in their own rights in Campaign 1. Pat had designed it so that in order to win and beat the big bad guys, we had to become champions of the gods and collect special weapons that previous champions held in order to give us enough of a power boost that we might have a chance of defeating the bad guys. And notice I say chance. Tell you what, Pat, here's my fucking character sheet. You play it. Do whatever you want. I'm out. The other aspect of all of this is that our characters don't even feel that powerful. We're constantly being beaten, barely surviving encounters because we get saved by some more powerful being, or because we barely manage to escape. Regardless, none of the feats are our own, and our clever tricks are often overruled by Pat saying,
I'm the DM. Whatever I say goes.
At, and even slightly before 11th level, villains we've come across had 30 strength, 5 legendary actions, the sentinel feat to try and prevent us from fleeing, even having up to 2 9th level spell slots, and even a 10th level one. The game no longer felt like something that we were able to win, but a scenario of the party versus Pat, where Pat makes all the rules. God, man, I just don't understand what keeps people going. I guess it's like the camaraderie with the other friends at the table, but yeah, what a hateful DM. The past 3 months of the campaign have been almost strictly railroaded as well. We were thrown into the Nine Hells and instructed to help free Levistus from the 5th layer, and given a compass that tells us exactly where we need to go. It's all so bad that it's been hard to even convince half of the group to continue playing. To try and give us a break, I offered to start a campaign of my own, but Pat is almost as bad of a player as he is a dungeon master. That doesn't surprise me. The character Pat brought to me is a blatant ripoff of Percy and Caleb from Critical Role. If you took the appearance and personality of Caleb and combined it with the class and backstory of Percy, you would have a near-perfect replica of his character. When suggesting ideas for where I could take his story, he told me that he
didn't want it to be too similar to Percy's story.
I don't even have the room to make it different, honestly. Take that and add on to the fact that he's tried to pressure me into letting the party level up one session after their last level up, and when no one else wanted to. The rules that he constantly argues with me on, despite taking no criticisms or suggestions in his own game, or the fact that he continuously creates discord among the rest of the party, and then gets mad when the story doesn't move forward. Even getting mad at me for letting a different player have a moment that was pivotal to their character arc. Ugh, he's the star. Pat's the star. It has reached a boiling point where I don't even want to invite him back to my table, or play in any of his games ever again. Then don't. Hey, here's a simple solution. Don't. My point in all of this is that D&D is a collaborative storytelling game where everyone gets a say in how it's played, not just one person. The game shouldn't mirror a live stream played by professional voice actors just because one person wants their game to be like that. I think, overall, Critical Role has had a positive effect on the way that D&D is played. But in this scenario, the opposite is true. The game is about creating fun, not replicating it. And the DM should never try to win or force the players to do something just because
it's the only way their story will work.
I mean, the dude has obviously learned nothing from the way that Matt Mercer DMs a game. He leaves things pretty open-ended. I think Critical Role can be a pretty good time, but I think that the voices are only like 5% of what makes Matt Mercer a good DM. The other 95% is like, look at him while other players are talking. He's absorbing, listening, making notes, seeing what they want out of their character and laying out a path to get there. This DM is just like, oh, we're gonna copy everything that happens in the show. Like, how about a little bit of originality? The lawyer kicks it off by telling me that
This isn't how the Debbie plane works.
Actually, allow me to correct you. I happen to be an expert on this subject.
everything that can go wrong did go wrong. The worst session 0 ever. Oh man, maybe I'll get to session 0 for my little Discord D&D group up one of these days. Fingers crossed, I know some people been waiting for it. We even did session 1 on Saturday, so I'm a little bit behind the curve as usual, but I'm working on it, I promise. Anyways, this was the only campaign that I've ever run, which I had to stop before it even started. That bad, huh? It began on Roll20. There's your first problem. I was running a homebrew game requested by a regular player of mine. He DMs a lot for this other group, and the campaign he's playing in with me, he's only at level 4. He's never played above level 6. So he just asked me to run a balls to the wall, level 20 one-shot campaign. God, I think I would be quite intimidated starting at level 20. I don't know what to do with all these spells. I thought through it and decided that a tournament arc would be a good way to get some insanely powerful characters together. I set it in a giant demi-plane so they could basically do whatever they wanted to that reality. Like a massive, soft playground for kids, but you know, kids with fireballs. Because I needed some mighty enemies, and a reason for this particular group to gather, I pitched that they were competing on behalf of the material realm against the champions from other realms. That sounds awesome already. In other words, they had to play races native to the material plane, like no genasi or bird people. I also limited Wish to just the listed effects or replicating spells. I want to be clear that I listed all of these rules in the advertisement for this game. Wish is always such a fun spell. It lets the DM be like a evil genie, you know? Little monkey's paw. I recruit the players and set up session 0 and we're good. Kinda. An hour before we start, Mr. Regular calls and tells me that his daughter has broken her leg, so he's out. Jesus. She's doing well now, just to let you know. How'd she break her friggin' leg? What is that? An hour before game start? Bro, I smell shenanigans on that one. But okay, if you're out, you're out. It was already a bad omen. But then the players joined us. We have our cast. The lawyer. Hated anything homebrew, but for some reason joined a homebrew game. The donkey. Extremely stubborn. No room for compromise. The weeb, the only redeemable character here, probably including myself. The sexist, only joined for enough time to find out that I'm a woman, and then he told me, he doesn't play with girls. Well, that's quick and easy at least. All right, bye-bye. The lawyer kicks it off by telling me that
This isn't how the Debbie plane works.
I tell him he's wrong because this plane was created specifically for the tournament by a god. And so he just grumbles.
Oh boy, oh God.
The weeb wants to play a fallen Aasimar. I was fine with that. And I was fine with that. There was a good plot hook there for conflict with the Celestia team. The lawyer, of course, argues that
Aasimar shouldn't be allowed because they're plane touched.
I point out that they're born on the material plane, and he wants to play a tiefling, technically, also descended from a power on another plane. The lawyer doubles down, and Donkey backs him, so now neither weeb nor lawyer get to play the race they want. It's like the rules lawyer just shot himself in the foot in order to not let somebody else have fun. Ain't that just like a lawyer? Weeb then says,
Who wants to play a ranger?
Donkey reveals that she's also a min-maxer and is firm in her belief
That rangers suck!
I make it clear that no one will be punished for playing a quote-unquote weaker class or for choosing to do something for roleplay reasons instead of combat prowess. I'm with OP on that one. Let me screw up my character however I want. A little extra challenge is a good thing, isn't it? But it seems like Donkey and Lawyer have already ruined the idea for him, and so Weeb goes quiet for a few minutes. Donkey decides that
She wants to play the cleric of a god that she homebrewed herself.
I'm not really down with players assuming that they can add their own homebrew, but I'm willing to hear her out. And she describes basically Lyra, the goddess of joy. I suggest that she follows her, but no, she wants her own special homebrew thing. Lawyer is practically frothing at the mouth. I suggest a compromise that where Donkey comes from, Lyra is called something different, like the homebrew name, and maybe worshipped a little differently, but she's still the same goddess. Nope, they're not happy with that. Weeb, who has been quietly doing his own thing, comes back with a character sheet, and it is filled with homebrew magic items.
If she's allowed to homebrew, I should be too.
I tell him no, and not to take the piss. He goes off and brings me back basically Naruto. Because of course he does. It's a half monk, half warlock who was rejected by his village, but now he rules it. At least it's finally a character that I can try and work with. So I tell him it's good, and he and Donkey start nerding out together. Well, hey, it is a little something. At least they're kind of making friends now. This interaction breaks the tension enough that we can start getting back to making a character sheet for everyone. Lawyer decides to play a wizard.
I'll just wish that we win.
No you won't. Wish is limited. He goes off again about how
Unfair that is, and how badly I've nerfed him.
as if the basic uses of wish aren't still really strong. Donkey hands in her character sheet while Lawyer's popping off. I think she was hoping that I wouldn't notice the bard spells that she picked.
My goddess lets me cast them.
No, she doesn't.
How am I meant to make a character if you have all these preconceived notions of the world?
And I was done. I kicked Donkey and Lawyer from the Discord server, invited Weeb to fill a spot in one of my regular campaigns, and never looked back. I should have shut it down when they bullied Weeb out of his character, but I was in denial, convinced that I could somehow claw it back. I mean, there's a few different reasons why that wish thing wouldn't work at all. Because you don't think anybody else in the tournament is going to try and counterspell that wish. It's not going to come true. Every other magic user is going to cast counterspell. Or alternatively, you just go, congratulations, you won! And then kick him out of the server and go, okay, now we're all playing for second place. Let's actually sit down and have some fun.
I'm coming for what I'm owed.
I command thee to deliver your souls to me.
Killed session 1 and called stupid for it. Neckbeard GM called it. This story happened a year or two ago, but it still makes me salty whenever I'm reminded of it. DM is starting a new campaign, and he's an experienced DM, so I trusted that he'd do my character well. Campaign starts at level 5, online on Roll20. 2 weeks before the session starts, I write out my character's backstory. Long story short is that he was a fallen Aasimar, FA for short, who formerly had a pact with a demon, but he wanted to repent for his sins and wrongdoings in the past. With the help of his husband, he turned a new leaf and becomes a cleric for hubby's god. I ask for feedback from the Dungeon Master, wanting to make sure that everything's alright with his backstory, and the Dungeon Master says,
It's great, and he can't wait to work with this.
So with that approval, I relax and wait for session 1. 3 out of the 5 of us are there because 2 got called back into work in the last minute. We start anyways, and we start off traveling to get a bounty. On the way to the bounty, we take a long rest. DM asks me, high or low? I'm a little nervous, but I pick high. Dungeon Master cackles and says,
The 3 of you are awakened by what sounds like a tear in the sky. Fallen Aasimar, you hear your patron's voice say, I'm coming for what I'm owed. Now all of you, roll initiative.
Oh snap. We are met with a Glabrezu, which goes first. The Glabrezu attacks me with power word stun. We're level 5, so of course I get stunned. Other two party members try to attack, but they roll low and miss. I rolled a lucky saving throw, and I'm no longer stunned, but that was my turn. The Glabrezu then uses all 4 of its attacks on me, and it hits all of them. But my character is barely hanging on. Party members try and get me out, but their damage isn't enough. My character can't feasibly break out of the Glabrezu's grasp, as one of its attacks grapples if it hits, so I just try and heal myself. The Glabrezu then uses all 4 attacks on me again, and outright kills my character. The Dungeon Master happily explains
how it rips into the fallen Asimar's chest, pulling out its soul, and leaves from the portal from whence it came.
We are 30 minutes into the session, and I am shaking and a bit upset. We didn't talk about this at all. Why didn't you at least give me a heads up about this? The Dungeon Master responds curtly with,
I don't know what you were expecting. You broke your pact, so of course your patron would want your soul.
Okay, but you threw a monster at us that a level 5 party couldn't really handle. And you only targeted me through the entire fight. How was that a fair fight, I ask?
If you weren't so stupid, then you wouldn't have died. Try coming up with a better backstory that doesn't involve a fucking demon,
the Dungeon Master replies. I'm obviously fuming at this point, some tears as well. You said the backstory was fine. Why would you approve of a backstory if you didn't like it?
I liked it. It's not my fault you were stupid about it. What were you expecting when you left your patron?
The Dungeon Master now laughs.
Here's your new character sheet.
I spend the rest of the session muted and pissed, upset, and crying to the point that I get a migraine. I did stay in the campaign because my friends were in it, and the Dungeon Master and I are friends in real life. Got called stupid by the DM for the small decisions that my new character made too, and the way he acted. The session obviously died not too long after because people were kind of tired of the DM's shit, and the DM was also tired of us. A shorter story, but thank you for reading. As a Dungeon Master, I would definitely throw a few demons at the party, but not demons that would overwhelm and kill them 30 minutes into the first session. Like, what is wrong with you? At that point, you're just trying to make people hate their hobby and possibly even hate you as a person, because you're like brushing them off and just being a general weenie. Like, hey, oh, well, here's a new character sheet. And then even when he rolls a new character, you're still like insulting him. OP says this DM is a friend of his, but sure wouldn't be a friend of mine for very long. I hope that it was more than just the session that died. Like, obviously, this is a campaign that won't be persisting for very long because the DM is basically only out there to torture people. Hey, did you spend time working on that character? That's great. He's dead now. Glabrezus are totally fucked up as far as monsters to fight. Even if their entire party of 5 people was there, they would not have won. Especially if a monster with 4 attacks per round is just focus firing one person. It's so purposeful. Shame on that DM. Definitely one of the least talented DMs that I've ever seen. Even if he is experienced, as the OP said, I don't think he's had a very large number of quality games. Maybe a large number of games that he's been the Dungeon Master for, but quality over quantity, especially in this case. For God's sake, just let people enjoy things. But not in all cases, as we shall see in our next story. There is a molestation trigger warning. I will warn you of that. It's right in the title. But if you think you're ready, then let's dive into it. Child molesting pervy dwarf. God, I don't know why I picked this one. So we've been running a revised Rise of Tiamat campaign since this summer. A few of our players had to quit, so a friend of mine brought one of his friends on board to play. This guy, let's just call him SG. What does SG stand for? Super gross? Probably. So Super Gross decides to roll a dwarf rogue with a noble background. All good. Since his character came from a wealthy family, I gave him the opportunity of designing a small region, just south of Longsaddle in the Forgotten Realms setting. Well, that's nice of ya. This is when things start going downhill. I ask him a few questions to help flesh out his background a bit more. OP, why'd your character become a rogue? Super Gross.
Because rogues do it from behind, obviously.
OP, what's his name? Super gross.
Trabant du manche.
We play in French, so his character name sounds like Trop Bon Du Manche or Too Good with his handle / shaft. OP? Okay. What's his family history like? Super gross.
Well, his mother was a human, and she slept with a dwarf who had incredible prowess in bed. So she decided to name their son Trabant in honor of his father's skill in bed.
Because that's something that happens. If that was the case, my name would be like Premature or something. Just burn my biological father. I then asked if he'd like to come up with a map of the region that his character comes from, which he agrees to. He sends me a map of this region, called La Manche. As you know by now, manche means handle or shaft, as in broom handle, which is also slang for penis. It doesn't sound so bad, as it isn't slang that's too common. As you've probably guessed, this whole region is shaped like a giant schlong. Built along a river named La Rivière Blanche, the White River. The end of the shaft is named Cap Rose. Pink Cape, as in the geological feature. The main city located north of the shaft was named White Lake, which was known for its special white algae that sold for fortunes as they contained potent aphrodisiacs. This guy really thought this out. A small city along the middle of the shaft is named Le Manchon, Little Shaft, or Penguin. Whatever, this is most likely never going to come up in our game anyways, or so I think, like the naive little DM that I am. This brings us to the second part of our story, where the group ends up meeting the dwarf rogue, who had been sent by the Harpers to help guide the group to the lair of a black dragon who'd been terrorizing the nearby swamp. OP. So, the lizardfolk chieftain lets you know that another soft skin has arrived. He should be around the village somewhere. OP to super gross. So is your character anywhere to be found? Super gross?
Yeah, he's at the brothel.
OP, there are no brothels in lizardfolk villages. Super gross?
Oh, well, I'm banging the chieftain's wife.
OP, okay. The chieftain tells you that the dwarf was last seen conversing with his mate in his tent. Super gross?
I walk out of the chieftain's tent and pull up my pants, letting the group take a look at my massive dwarven cannon.
The group? What? The group ends up finding a hag coven, and one of them had been abducted by the dragon to use as leverage against the other two. They asked the group to go and slay the dragon and free their sister. Super gross?
I tell the hags that if they tell me where they hide their treasure, I won't blow my load in this pot of soup right here.
I had previously described a pot of soup with human flesh inside, and his character was jerking off into it. What the hell? The hags, of course, are insulted and teleport the party out into the middle of the swamp. They have no idea where they are and spend the better part of the day trying to find their way. As they find the dragon's lair, in Old Colt's building, Supergross removes his clothing, stating,
"This place is giving me a major case of swamp ass. I'm sweaty all over." I go ahead and knock on the building's front door. If the dragon answers, I'll seduce it.
Yeah, sweaty little dwarf. That's exactly what dragons are into. This goes about as well as you'd expect. The dragon arrives behind them with a bunch of kobolds on its back, tossing rocks and dung buckets at them. They almost end up dying as the dwarf stumbles into a hidden underwater pit with a giant crocodile in it. They're saved when Supergross starts doing the helicopter dick towards the dragon. Disgusted, the dragon asks why he's even bothering with these imbeciles, and sends 2 trolls to take them out. One of them is a female troll. Supergross.
I try and tug at her nipples.
He rolls for acrobatics. Anyways, they end up surviving by the skin of their teeth, and Supergross starts raping the troll's corpse. Aw, come on. I tell him that's absolutely disgusting, and he's too exhausted to get it up, so he is in fact not raping that corpse. God, this is gonna get demonetized. Inside the dragon's lair, they free a bunch of prisoners. Super Gross tries to seduce the women immediately and fondles some of the younger girls that I described as being between 14 and 17. He tries to get sexual favors from the hag, stating that
toothless women give the best blowies.
well, he ain't wrong, I assume. Anyways, that's about where it ends, thank God. They defeat the dragon, it turns into a Dracolich before leaving, and they head back into Waterdeep. They get sent to Cholt to find a black dragon mask to try and stop Tiamat's return. Super Gross doesn't show up for a few games because of work and personal issues. A lot of personal issues. One evening as we're nearing the end of the dungeon, he doesn't show up after he said he would. He doesn't answer his phone. He doesn't answer Facebook. So we go to his place, worried, because he had drug abuse issues in the past and we were worried that he'd relapsed. But he doesn't answer his door either, and his car is in the parking lot. Not much else we can do, so we go back to my place to resume the game. Later during the week, he texts us on Facebook to tell us that
he lost his job and wasn't feeling too good, and he apologizes for not being there.
All good. Shit happens. Whatever. He comes back to the next game and starts his pervy shenanigans again. This time, however, he starts messing around with the other players. He gives the elf the white seaweed from LeBlanc, that potent aphrodisiac that I mentioned before, and he tells me
he should roll a constitution check to see if he pops a boner.
I tell him that elves are immune to such things. Not true, I don't think, but whatever. Nobody's gonna check that. He eventually retires his dwarf to make a half-orc barbarian. His dwarf is tired of the adventuring life and wants to go back to being a Harper bureaucrat. He plays for 2 to 3 more games until he disappears from the face of the earth. This is around early September. I'd also like to add that his perverted nonsense was also out of the game. Whenever I'd drop him off at his place after our games and he had to stop at the convenience store, he'd comment on how
he'd screw the brains out of that cashier.
He kept talking about
how many girls he'd screwed and how many threesomes,
etc. Anyways, long story short, we learned that he'd been taken into custody after multiple underage girls, 12 to 14 years old, hate it, had accused him of sexual assault and rape. The news article even mentions that the events had taken place around the time where he wouldn't answer at the apartment door. So basically, I just had his characters hang publicly for some made-up crime and called it a day. If only you could do that to the actual player. I feel sick just thinking about it, but damn. I wasn't even surprised, after I learned that he was a child rapist, how his character was acting in-game. TLDR. Considering that this guy was 28 years old, that is like way too many sex jokes and innuendos and such. I think that without a doubt he was compensating for something. Probably impotent or, micro penis. That's why he only went after girls who were obviously inexperienced due to their age. God, I hate this. So cringy. Like, I'm laughing at the parts where it's happening in the story, but as soon as it leaks into real life, I'm like, God damn. That is just the worst thing ever. I guess I should have seen it coming due to, like, his endless fixation, but, man, it's always heavier than I expected. I never take the titles completely seriously, no matter how bad they are, and then I kick myself in the ass later. I'm super glad that his characters got hanged, but, like, I'm serious when I say that I wish the actual player could be hanged, because this type of stuff is just heinous. I don't understand what possesses somebody to do something like that, but I think that he should have been kicked out of this campaign long before, these accusations came to light. Obviously, he's ruining the atmosphere, like a joke here and there. That's kind of funny, But if all you're doing is, like, trying to bang dragons and swinging on a troll's nipples, like, you're not taking this game seriously, You're never going to get any good role play out of a character like that anyways. He should go find a group that's, more suited to his interest. A group of sex-driven murder hobos or something like that. Oh, God. I try and laugh and keep it light, but God, that is some disgusting stuff. A potent reminder that the worst monsters out there aren't the ones in the monster manual. Beware of people like this. Horrible. I guess we'll get into the next one. And again, the subject matter is a little bit heavy, but At least we get to see justice done, I think. So let's see how it goes. To Catch a Predator, D&D edition. Yes, I'm so into beard bait lately. It's not like it sounds. Not baiting beards, just beard bait. Never mind. I used to be a part of a West Marches Discord D&D server months ago. As a reference, West Marches servers are essentially servers that focus on one-shots for one particular setting, allowing the characters the player plays to progress through different one-shots and different DMs. Although the accessibility is a huge plus, allowing for newbies and veterans alike to hang out, being able to adjust for a tight schedule easy, this can also make way for plenty of bad people to leech on and not let go. These were one of those times, with the case of Howard, a 22-year-old male, name replaced for anonymity of course. Don't worry, the title will make sense later on. Howard, that's a perfect pervert name. Trigger warning for pedophilia, obviously, grooming, mentions of rape, and general creepiness that you'd find from any nice guy on the internet. Yeah, this channel seems to run into a lot of that. Deep breath. Okay. When he first came onto the server, it didn't take long to give off a negative impression, even if he seemed nice at the start. He played an assassin rogue wood elf named Fulred, with some convoluted backstory involving him being drafted as a soldier into war when he was a child. Something happened, I believe something involving a cult, that led to his sister being trapped in some kind of amulet. He had this odd, magical version of dissociative identity disorder, where he would switch to this character called White whenever he got pissed off, going completely feral and threatening to kill people, having even attacked my character when he was taken to the temple he resided in for help. The first time he switched was during roleplay, in between games, when a drow tavern owner told him off for not respecting other people's boundaries, alongside his need to be mothered by people around him. Now, I didn't get the second part, but the first part was very apparent when I scrolled upwards, when he and his raven was invading the personal space of her and her girlfriend. This was the first red flag, especially when he made extremely passive-aggressive out-of-character comments about her and me, an innocent bystander who just wanted a bento box from the kitchen. However, I gave him the benefit of the doubt, as sometimes I wound up taking in-character things kinda personal at times. I thought this was the case, and technically I was right, but oh boy, things got worse from there. A server was created about his shenanigans, constantly sharing memes about him and what he did. There's so many stories I could tell, but this story would go on for hours if I talked about them all. Please write that post. I want to go on for hours about this. As time went on, Howard started to get suspicious. After his in-character girlfriend had to leave the server, Full Red got a crush on literally every girl he met. He made really creepy out-of-character comments regarding other people's female characters, including, but not limited to, calling one of my friend's NPCs the town's next public urinal for having an active sex life. And he even made a second character, a female dampier named Nicolette. As Nicolette, he constantly stated in character about how
she was a girl and a vampire,
to the point of where that was just the entire extent of her personality. He also sexualized her quite a bit, to the point of where one time he literally listed her breast size when giving a description of her. They were double Ds, of course, because why wouldn't they be? So yeah, very obvious fetish integration on a D&D server full of minors. Class act. I started to get more and more suspicious of his behavior towards women in character and out of character, and it spiraled during the private messages of a female character, played by a past friend of mine. She was talking to Full Red about how she was continuously raped as a child. The first out-of-character comment he made about the reveal was essentially,
she's not a virgin? Oh well, Nicolette can fix that.
For context, he associated a broken hymen with losing your virginity, so he believed if you regenerated the spell, your hymen, that it would be restoring your virginity. Weird as fuck, I know. By that logic, there's a lot of women out there who have lost their virginity to, like, a bicycle seat. That ain't how it works, bro. Oh, God. After that, I had a bit of an idea. I wound up leaving the server at the time, due to many reasons that I'd rather not say here. Keep in mind, though, he was partly the reason. And even though I left, I still cared about the server, and I was legitimately afraid of Howard at that point. I wanted to make sure that he wasn't being predatory with any girls on the server, especially underage ones. He was already pretty sexual with a minor, one of my other friends. That friend was a guy, and clearly uncomfortable with the interaction, but Howard was still persistent. When a seemingly normal conversation delved into some sort of odd fantasy of his, of my friend being the boss of some company and getting his dick sucked under the desk, though I didn't hear about all this until a bit after. So I had a plan to make sure that if he is being predatory, his ass will get booted off the server, for good. I posed as a 16-year-old girl from Nevada by the name of Emily. My character was an Aasimar that looked like a half-elf, as I knew his type by then to be elvish, due to one of Full Red's magical items being magical angel wings that sprouted out during roleplay whenever he wanted to act like the epitome of goodness and compassion. I knew he also had a fixation for angels. I named her Ella, and she was essentially a cheery and excitable bimbo cheerleader stereotype who liked to garden and sing. Basically, Howard's dream girl from what I'd seen. She was a divine soul sorcerer / bard mix. I made Emily's personality similar to Ella's, even being a cheerleader in real life herself. I also made absolute sure that no one knew I was pretending to be her, not even my friends. I even swapped the time zones on my phone to replicate Nevada when I sent evidence to the admins. Only my boyfriend knew, and he left the server with me. I changed my typing style to be grammatically pristine, and I used my emoji button like there's no tomorrow. I was fucking ready. No matter how long it took, I would make sure that this guy wasn't harming little girls. Not all heroes wear capes. He took the bait immediately after I posted my reference for her. He claimed Ella to be
so fucking hot
after seeing her reference photo, leaving a little hard eyes emoji reaction below it. I was legitimately surprised that he took it so quickly, and he took that bait hard. After a brief run-in with him, my character left because I was getting bored and he was clearly busy. He then private messaged me, expressing
his disappointment about not being able to talk to her so they can not to be friendos.
What, like more than friendos? I don't understand. But I do understand that it was a clear flirt, despite the fact that Full Red was at the time engaged. The very first message. And he already tried to joke flirt about our characters. I responded, obviously not feeding his advances to see if he would proceed further. And of course he did, with highlights such as,
"Ooh, private conversation with Full Red? Haha, well, so, a beautiful cheerleader who's nerdy for D&D and is super smart in classes? Sounds pretty much perfect, lol. And, nice, good dreams. I bet I could guess what you were dreaming about. Wink emoji."
He used the wink emoji a lot during our conversations, by the way, at least 10 times, and we did not talk that often. One of his personal favorites when I was talking about how Ella basically turned her spare room into a greenhouse. I was listing off the various flowers that she had in there, and he responded with,
"Jokingly speaking, if she's in a tiny garden, would she be the primrose, too precious to deflower? I mean, pluck from the garden of beauty?" I bet Eve would be jealous Adam picked someone else, lol.
God, even his come-ons are clunky and juvenile. You said this guy's in his 20s? He's like 14 in his head. This personally made me realize how much Howard had taken this bait. He didn't just swallow the worm, not even the hook. He swallowed the whole damn fishing line. Of course, this was only towards my character, but I knew that if he was charmed by Ella that easily, Emily wouldn't be much of an exception. I gave him my first sign that I was a minor, claiming that I was in school so my responses would be sparse. Of course, in online classes, due to the pandemic, this did not stop his flirting, as he responded to this reveal by saying,
I see. Good girl for being a good student. Don't let me distract you too much. Wink emoji."
which really rubbed me the wrong way. Big time. But this couldn't have been the first reveal because he already said that she was good in classes or something like that. Whatever. Anyways, I revealed my grade a bit afterwards alongside my age. Now, the reason I picked Nevada was one thing, and one thing only. The legal age there is 16. Of course, that doesn't mean his flirting is any less creepy, and that doesn't mitigate the age of consent laws over Discord and the internet in general, which is 18. However, I had the feeling that the consent laws for Nevada, which I did state were a thing as Emily, would prevent him from being scared away, and oh boy, it didn't. In fact, it seemed like it made him even more enticed. I want to know how you brought that one up. By the way, the age of consent is 16.
Oh boy.
God damn it. I talked more about my life, which was of course fabricated to hell and back. He wanted to voice chat, but I simply gave the excuse that I was mute, in case he would recognize my voice if I spoke out. He started to get extremely simpy, even more so than he did with that flower comment. He exclaimed about
how smart I was,
and I asked why. And he went on an entire psychoanalytical rant regarding my
proper grammar and how I played my character to be purposely sociable.
Which, I mean, he did get it pretty right on the nose. I made Ella an everybody's friend type of character, a beacon of positive energy as a means of being able to attract his character towards me. In the end, he exclaimed,
or TLDR, I could just Sherlock Holmes the crap out of you, and I could tell.
With, of course, yet another winky emoji. This man used winky emojis in those few days more than I have ever used them in my life. I found that pretty funny, considering how I was pretending to be someone else the entire time. Either way, the next day passed, and we talked a bit more. He gave me more information about himself, saying
he was 22 years old and training to be a pharmacist.
Yet still considered himself a doctor despite not having a PhD yet. I talked about being in Nevada, my school life, being a cheerleader, and how I wanted to go into the medical field. He mentioned how
a sexy nurse's costume or sexy scrubs would be a nice look for Halloween.
Keep in mind, he did know that I was 16. He showed pictures of his pet, which was about the only truly wholesome thing about our conversations together. The cat was actually really cute, and I still smile at photos of it from time to time. At least he's not a cat hater, I guess. Yeah, he loves Slow-hanging fruit. Sorry. After some time, I had to take a shower. This gave me the idea to bait him one last time, by of course saying that I'm taking a shower. And dear Lord, he didn't just swallow the fishing line with that. He swallowed the boat. He said,
"Oh, don't tease me like that, baby."
With another goddamn wink emoji. I knew this man for 5 days, and he had already expressed signs of grooming, from the constant over-complimenting and sexual references, constant directly sexual flirting, very simp-like behavior towards both Ella and Emily, and he had a flag so red that it could pierce through the rosiest glasses fucking imaginable. Keep in mind, not only have y'all not seen it all because, again, I'd be here all day, I didn't even flirt back with him. I constantly switched topics, ignored his flirtatious behavior, and tried to essentially be this oblivious little girl that didn't know shit. The only thing I did that reassured him was state that despite being 16, I/Emily was still considered a legal adult in Nevada. Not even once on Discord, or the internet in general, in Nevada. Maybe, just maybe, you could consider the time that I referenced sex once as flirting. Maybe. But even then, that nowhere near justifies the gross behavior that he exemplified towards a kid. This was the last straw. At that point, I was legitimately stunned. Not just surprised, I was actually scared, paranoid. It was hard to sleep that night. If he said all of this to a non-existent girl over the course of 5 days, what about the real little girls who were legitimately oblivious to his advances, and he would have stayed in contact with them for longer? For weeks? Months? Years? I had to tell the admins. After giving them the evidence, it literally took them minutes to decide to ban him, when otherwise he could have stayed there for many months longer, preying on minors on the server and manipulating them into doing awful things. And God, I pray that when I told him off for doing this, still pretending to be Emily one last time, that he had his lesson. If not, then he might still be grooming girls to this day. I don't want to give away his Discord tag in case he did learn his lesson, but please, if you see creepy behavior, don't be afraid to call them out on it. Let others know. We can't let people like this get away with shit like this. And Howard, if you're reading this, take the words that I've said and use it to better yourself. Don't play the victim card. Your behavior can legitimately traumatize little girls and can land you in jail, which is probably what you deserve anyways. Plus, if you're planning on being in the medical field, they are very unforgiving towards creepy individuals, especially those who have pedophile-like behavior. Even if you're miraculously not an actual pedophile, which he totally is, go to therapy. Stop being a dick.
Stop it. Get some help.
TLDR. If y'all want more stories about Howard, let me know. There was a time he derailed an entire mission and had the party tie him up and almost kill him, only to basically say,
It's a prank, bro.
And then there's the temple incident, and I'm sure I could find some more through my old friends. If you have any questions, ask me in the replies or the DMs. See y'all later. Peace. Well, this story honestly wasn't as horrible as the second one, but it also didn't give the sense of closure that the second one did. So I hate to be that guy, you know, but he probably did just find another server. There's not a whole lot that's keeping him from just going and doing the same thing somewhere else, you know. I hope to God, I hope to high heaven that he gets caught, put in jail, and spends many, many years getting the crap beat out of him before getting shivved in the prison shower. And that might seem like a little bit of an overreaction, but honestly, if you think that this guy wouldn't take things further if the door was open to him, then you're only kidding yourself. You know, he definitely would. This isn't some guy being sexual and silly in a roleplay like in Story 2, which might slip under my radar, honestly. I've made a few innuendo myself, you know? But this is like expressly going into an underage girl's DMs and being like, I want to deflower you. You like gardening? Let me put my dick in you. Isn't there a Bible quote or something that's like, if your eye causes you to sin, then you should pluck it out? And I think that we should probably pluck this guy's eyes out, and then he can only do the wink emoji from now on. Since you like it so damn much, castrate him, cut off his hand, take off his eyes. Now he can't hurt anybody. Now you can go and live a full and normal life, can't you, Howard? If I stumble across somebody like this, you better believe I'm giving out their Discord name, and their actual name, and their address, and their personal phone number, and all their family's phone number, so everybody around them can know exactly what a piece of shit they are associating with. Call up his mom and tell him that she raised a sex offender. We're just here to pretend to be wizards and kill goblins, aren't we? You don't need to turn it into like some dating chat room. God, I hate it. But you know what I love? Truly. When you guys like, comment, and or subscribe. Hell yes, segue. You could also share the video around because that's an ultra cool thing to do. I also hope you'll check out the links in the description. We got that PayPal, Patreon, Twitter, Discord, Facebook. I'm going to start posting original stories on Facebook, so you guys can look forward to that. And then there's my other channel. There might be some other stuff down there too. And of course, I would be remiss not to thank my gorgeous, beautiful, generous, wonderful patrons. We've got Lady Nix, Crimson Albedo, Dot Nathan, Robert Waits, Just Austin, Pope Squid, Rebecca H, Cider Drinker, Tato Ferret, The Last Shinobi, and Mark 211. Thank you guys so much for helping me to live the dream. If anybody else could support monetarily, that's massively appreciated, of course. But if you can't, no problem, no pressure. I just appreciate you hanging out with me today, and I hope that you come on back and hang out with me tomorrow. In order to do so, you will need to keep yourself mentally and physically safe. Physically, let's wash our hands. That's extremely important. Mentally, just take some time out and do something that you enjoy today. Have a little relaxation session, you know? Because always remember, friends, that you are loved, you are worthy, and you definitely, definitely deserve it. I'll see you again tomorrow. And until then, bye-bye.